Alright, we are back. And I say that because my internet went out. That's not the only technical difficulty I had, but it is one of them, certainly. Yeah, the stream ended suddenly, and that was inconvenient because I've put in some work since then. Yeah. I don't even know what all I did. I made this... Sorry, I found this shield, which is going to be the one I'm going to be keeping. I upgraded this stuff to netherite. My backpack stopped working. Yeah, so if I have this on and I press B, why is it working now? Oh my god. So I did that, I did some inventory clearing, got all the stuff from the smelting. I have some ancient debris, which was gotten from fighting the big hand boss. It's honestly the easiest boss in the pack. That's not like vanilla. I actually got the vault up and running, which will be useful for factory operations later, but I'm using it right this second. Oh yeah, I got gemstone socketed. I obviously had the royal family one, but I got a gemstone of the warlord for 20% damage, 70% speed and 8 armor, and nothing on the boots yet. The chestplate has a ton of health, and it'll get more health. Actually, wait, no, I think it'll be the armor one, isn't it? Yeah, the plus 8 armor. So I can be even tankier. How do I make fireworks? This is gunpowder and paper, right? Alright, I guess we'll find out which one's better. Obviously, the Flight 3 is stronger, but that's not necessarily relevant. And then the other thing I was doing is I found out I need a ton of Dragon's Breath, hence the stream title. Let me just get speech chat back open so I'm not deaf to you guys. I closed it when the internet went out. Check out my own stream. Anyone type in chat yet? The other thing I was doing is I found out... No, I did. Okay. Alright.
And monastic stuff.
Right, and then found out Vosh interviewed Katie Wilson, Seattle's next mayor, and I'm going to be listening to that. I like Vosh in general, and politics is important.
I'm introing. Hey, hello, Katie Wilson.
Hi.
What a pleasure to speak to you again.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, no, honestly, I couldn't believe, so close to the race. I feel like Seattle is not covered nationally, as much as I would expect for a city of its size and wealth, And obviously right now the big focus nationally is Mondani. There's a lot of controversy over there. Maybe a nice cover, honestly, for some big controversies that have come out about you recently. I was reading an article, and here, hold on. You've read this KUOW article, right? This very neutrally...
I did eventually read it. It took me a while.
You did eventually get around to it? No, I couldn't believe... I can't do the bit properly. I can't pretend that it's serious. So, hold on. Katie Wilson can barely afford to live in Seattle. That's why she wants to be mayor. Is that really a reason?
I mean, it's not really about me. It's about, all of us who are struggling to live here.
That was good. No, I read through it, and it's like...
I mean, it would be a very roundabout strategy to be like, I can't afford to live here, so I'm going to become mayor to make it more affordable.
Yeah, I tripped over this pothole. I will personally. Yeah, no, I mean, it could work, right? I think that actually running a campaign is pretty expensive. My understanding is that it's pretty difficult, but I haven't done it, so what do I know? But so right. It talks, you're running as a working class candidate. You have sympathies with the working class. God forbid. And then there's this paragraph where it says, not included in the narrative Wilson tells in the campaign trail is how she affords this expensive city. The answer is simple and arguably very Seattle. Her parents, professors in New York State, give her money. And it goes on to say that they help you with childcare costs. At length, extensive in this article, the way they phrase your responses to this, when pressed, you admitted. And this was like never a secret?
I mean, I told her.
What?
And it's also, I mean, they like, she made it sound like I'm some kind of trust
it just
fund
dumped
or
really
something
fast.
Like that.
Okay.
It's like I'm a 43-year-old woman. I've been living in Seattle for over 20 years independently,
Huh?
and before this campaign, I didn't have my daughter in childcare, and yeah, my parents, offered to step up and
Did
help
I
with
not
some of those
have
costs
four?
during the campaign. So it's like it's not very scandalous, but they tried to turn it into some
Oh,
kind of weird.
it's bad.
Yeah, I know
believe
it's
they
bad.
used the term ivory tower in the article. And Bruce Harrell, of course, your opponent, even sent out a mass text. Hold on. From KUOW, Katie Wilson's campaign built around working class identity, but parents pay her bills. There a contradiction in those two? I feel like, if anything,
Okay.
that's. I mean, I'm speaking as a 31, soon to be 32-year-old. A lot of people are getting help out where they can. I've noticed this trend with people who are sympathetic
Got
to the
plenty of
working class. They run
food.
politicians, even pundits,
Okay.
where they have to keep proving it. It's like being
Gotta
a sports
figure out
fan.
where my
Well, are
thing
you the
is.
biggest Mariners fan? In what way exactly
Screenshots.
are you working class? Is every moment of your life dedicated to poverty and monastic suffering? How ascetic are you? Do you eat only lentils? It's just like an
Where'd
obsession,
screenshots
right?
go?
I feel like a little bit more scrutiny could be paid towards the wealthier people.
I mean, yeah, and I feel like this. I'm an elder millennial, right? I'm like the old end of the millennial generation, and it's like the avocado toast thing, right? It's like we're this generation that at some point realized that we're on the whole less well off than our parents, maybe kind of downwardly mobile. And that's just kind of a feature of where we're at. And so many people receive help from family or friends in some way or another. It's actually pretty normal these days.
It's like really I don't know. It feels to me like it's almost anti-attack ad there, where they're like, well, this person who you thought was relatable, did you know that her parents helped out with some household expenses? Okay, I don't know. When I went to a community college, and then I went to a university,
Okay,
and
which
between the
one?
two, I saved up for a while, for a year. I worked and I lived with my parents. I didn't have to pay
Yeah,
rent.
it's a-
I saved up.
Moocher.
I know, right? Yeah, it's a working class.
That's another
lifestyle
monstrosity.
plus
That'll be
with his parents.
useful.
My mom saved up too. She didn't tell me. When I went off to university, she kicked me some money.
That
to go
might
along
be
with
a
me.
thing.
Really, really, really helped. It helped me, not have to work when I was at uni. Helped me enjoy my time there.
Did I
get
not?
a little bit more.
Oh,
out of
I
it.
didn't take a
feel
screenshot at
like-
the end. Portal.
I mean, it's such a big class divide that could even be used as an insult.
Totally. And I mean, the incumbent lives in a multi-million-dollar house. He's got, he's a multi-millionaire. And I think that's kind of part of what this campaign is about. It's not him personally, but just he's a little out of touch with the situation that most people are experiencing in their daily lives.
Yeah, I see it all over the country. It feels like, I don't know if I want to say people are waking up, because you always say that people are getting smarter, and in the long run maybe they're not. I don't know. We tend to keep making the same mistakes in aggregate, but it does seem like more and more we're being made aware of how big of a difference there is culturally between like the average guy and the average person in Congress or the Senate or even city council in a lot of cities. I mean, even those people often are relatively well-off suburbanites, dictating policy to a city full of people who come from all walks of life. I don't know. I mean, I hope this could market change here in Seattle specifically, but also broadly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful. I think one of the most exciting things about this race to me is just the amount of enthusiasm, and especially from younger people. I think people are really ready for a different kind of politics, a different kind of leadership. And, I'm coming from being a community organizer, and it's all about participation. It's all about how can we get more people in our city really involved in the governance process and making those decisions that affect our lives. And I think that message has really resonated, and also just the promise that, like, I'm going to fight to make this city affordable, right? Like, we have a housing crisis, childcare is so expensive, groceries are so expensive, and And right now, I think what people are seeing from City Hall is just not a lot of urgency around that.
Yeah, I mean, especially not when they're running attack ads like, did you know you're getting help from folks? Pretty normal thing these days. There was another one. Hold on, I have this one too.
Is this just going to be a greatest hits of all the attacks
It is
on me?
because they're really really funny. Okay. So this one, I saw this from Hannah Creek, who runs the what is it? Is it the Burner? Yeah, which lovely local publication, which is this this presser that got sent out. And it was Katie Wilson isn't prepared to lead. It's little snippets from the debate, right? And I love the implication here, where it says questions posed. What's the highest budget you've ever managed? And your answer was say around a quarter or so. How much were your client costs? How many employees have you managed? And the small text here is no candidate authorized this ad. It's paid for by Bruce Harrell for Seattle's Future, 509 Olive Way, Suite 111. It's this forgive me for reading too much into it, but it seems to me like the implication of these attacks, how many people have you Seattle's got a huge budget, have you ran a budget that large, is that the only job you could have that would prepare you to be mayor is CEO. That's the only acceptable, morally acceptable lead up. And anything else, community organizer, activist, even a lawyer, a lot of presidents were lawyers before, none of those would work. It's all just, CFO stuff. It's all budgetary work.
Well, and it's a very, it's a very inaccurate depiction of what the job of mayor is, right? I can tell you right now, Bruce Harrell's not up there on the 7th floor, personally managing 14,000 people. And if he is, that's a problem. Maybe that's why it's so dysfunctional up there.
Well, that's impressive. If he was doing that, I would switch my vote. I'm sorry to say, it's a lot of work for one guy. It is. It's a task of delegation, right? Anything from the president to the mayor, you have to choose the people.
What the hell?
You. Do you feel you have good people to choose from?
Oh, I do. Yeah. Since we came out of the primary with over 50% of the vote, we immediately got very serious about planning for winning, basically, right? And so over the last few months, I've been working with a lot of great people, including people who've worked in City Hall for decades, and really mapping out, what does that look like? What's the transition process look like? What's a good structure for the mayor's office? How should the mayor's office relate to the departments? Because right now, there's just a lot of dysfunction in City Hall. And so, yeah, I'm very aware that as I assemble my team, as I assemble the executive team in the mayor's office, right, I'm going to need to bring people in with me who have kinds of experience that I don't have, right? And my experience as a coalition builder, as a community organizer, in many ways, I think prepares me better for this job than if I was the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, right? Because I have so many relationships around the city, and I really know the landscape in a way that if you were coming in from the corporate sector, from the outside, you wouldn't know what you were doing. You would be at the mercy of whoever got your ear. And so, yeah, it's really about assembling that team and making sure that you're bringing in with you people who have kinds of experience that you don't, and that together you have all those capacities and skills needed to lead the city.
I think that's just it, right? Usually when these people come in, they come in from the business side of things. They're used to working with consultants, lobbyists. This is how you get bills that are written by corporations and signed off on by politicians. You don't have much expert insight or input from that side of things, where actual experts get sidelined. I can't say I'm privy to the operation of City Hall here in Seattle. I do know that at the very least in LA, which is the city that I lived in prior to here, which is gridlock, absolute nightmare city, by the way, would never recommend it. But nothing ever gets done. And I think that a lot of that is because you have these conflicting interests, right? You've got the corporate interests and so on. But you also have just deadlocked needs of the people that can't really be argued with, or there would be massive electoral consequences. So nothing happens, ever.
And I really think, this is something where I think this is a really big difference in approach and governing style between me and the current mayor, right? He's a very transactional politician. And I'm not saying that as a slam on him. I think it's just a fact that kind of everyone acknowledges, including people who support him. And so that means that his style is basically building relationships where it's well, I give you this, and then...
Hey, wait, wasn't there a cobblestone around here somewhere?
And I think when you look at the way that he's operated over the last 4 years in City Hall, he came into office wanting above all to be a two-term mayor, right? And so that meant that he put a lot of focus in his 4 years on building that coalition of interests that he thought was going to be able to get him reelected. And in my mind, that's just not a good way to govern, right? Because that means that you're not starting with the vision of the city and the vision of what people need. You're starting with, well, I need these people on my team, so what do they want? And I need these people on my team, so what do they want? And so you end up with this kind of incoherent grab bag of interests that you're trying to satisfy, and you don't end up with a coherent vision for the city. You don't end up with progress on the problems that everyday people are facing in their lives. For me, that is the most important thing. And so when I step into the mayor's office, I'm going to be governing with that vision and with that desire to have everyday people participating in that vision and building it and carrying it out. And the interest thing, I mean, there's always a transactional element to politics, but that's really secondary.
I guess that's what's always gotten me down. I think it's the reason a lot of people have gotten down on democracy in general lately. The idea that politics is just for politics. There's not really a point to it. Once you're in power, you use it to, you do what you want, you reward favors. A lot of people, I think, they don't believe in the idea that you can just elect a good person and they do good work, and they do it because they love the city and they care about the people, and to whatever extent it has to be transactional to get stuff done, right? It's still the real world, but at the end of the day, the goals are altruistic. I think a lot of people have forgotten that's even possible. They've kind of given up on the process,
I think that's right. And I mean, here I just want to give a plug for our democracy voucher program, because I think part of the reason, I mean, there's lots of reasons why our politics is kind of corrupt in that way. But one of the reasons, of course, is how elections are financed. And here in Seattle, we have the democracy voucher program where ordinary people, even if you don't have a lot of money, right, you can contribute to a candidate's campaign through this program. And that's overwhelmingly how we funded our campaign. And that's really part of the reason why I feel like I'm going to be able to be accountable to the people of Seattle in a way that would be really difficult if I was depending on bigger dollar donations from people.
Are you a hallucination?
A lot from you too. I mean, if you win, and there's a decent shot you do.
Go for it.
The people of Seattle haven't had, I mean, we haven't had a hero a long time. Certainly not since I
Do
came.
I have to be a hero, Mayor?
You get people hyped up. No, look, I've never met a Bruce Harrell fan. I'm sure I've met plenty of people who have voted for him. I haven't met a person who's talked about it. I've met fans of yours, incidentally, not even in the course of my work. People will have high expectations. And I mean, sure, some people get disappointed. You can't give everything to everyone. But do you worry about that? Do you worry about the ability to, even within the bounds of your ability, manage people's expectations about what can be done and how quickly it can be done?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel a really deep sense of responsibility,
Okay,
right?
so
Because I know, I walk around the city now, and people recognize me, and they're so enthusiastic, and they're like, "Oh, I just voted for you," and it's really exciting, especially when it's an 18-year-old who this is their first time voting or whatever, right? And I know that people are really putting their hopes and dreams into this campaign, and the things that I want to do, the things that I'm promising to fight for. Like an affordable city, right, are not something that's going to happen overnight, and there's going to be big obstacles, and progress in some cases is going to be slow, right? And so I think the challenge for me, and I mean, this is very similar, I think, with, obviously Zohran Mamdani in New York City, is how can we push as hard as we can toward those results that we want to see, and how can we tell the story of what we're doing and why, and the obstacles that we're coming up against, and if things are slower than we want them to be, or we're not able to do something, how do we tell that story and have that be something that people are participating in, so that there's that understanding and that desire to push further, and that kind of political analysis, really, of what's in our way, and the kind of movement that we have to build on the outside to overcome whatever that is.
Wow, I pissed off a whole lot of you at once.
What I'm able to accomplish as mayor, and what Zohran's able to accomplish, or anyone, coming from the progressive left, coming into a position like that, is going to be so dependent on people organizing on the outside and pushing for that positive change. And this is something that I feel in my bones as a community organizer, because all the work that I've done over the years, pushing for transformative policies, whether that's raising the minimum wage or strengthening renter protections or taxing the rich, right? All of those things, those wouldn't happen unless people on the outside, labor unions, community organizations, organized and fought for it, right? And that's still going to be true. Obviously, having elected officials who want good things is a vital part of the puzzle. But that pressure from the outside and that support from the outside is still going to be all important, because you could get someone great elected, but if there's not that movement on the outside, there's not that organizing, then the people who are organized are the people with the money and the power. And so you try to do something good, and they don't want you to do it, like they're going to be able to use the media, they're going to be able to use their money, right? And you're not going to be able to get those things done because they're going to undermine you in every way they can. And so it's going to be so important that people are continuing to do that work on the outside. And I know that, and I think part of my job as mayor is going to be to create that space for that organizing and make sure that my mayor's office is working with organizations that are doing that work in communities on the outside.
I think I see that a lot. I mean, that's important communication. And I see that this disgruntlement, I think, where people get really excited about voting for you, getting you elected, or anything else. And then they're like, I still have to work? I have to keep fighting? I thought we got you over the hurdle. And what I think a lot of people forget, you know, is like you said, when you have a corporate candidate in power, those guys are working 24/7. I mean, it's their job, right? The lobbyists and the people who do like the oppo work, everyone who supports them, all the people who do like paid contributions, who do these like meetings, you know, that are undisclosed, where they talk about mutual interest, the transactional element of the job, that's 24/7. They're always working, you know? I feel like it's because it's invisible, or at least you see it through like financial disclosures, you know, it's just numbers. You don't see it out in the street. So it feels like we're the side that always has to put in work, you know? And I think a lot of people get discouraged. They think like, oh, it's always an uphill battle, you know? There's never an
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's like the slogan of my campaign is "This is your city," right? And there's like different meanings to that. And one meaning is like, this is your city, so you should be able to afford to live here. Your government should be working for you, should be delivering results for you. But another meaning is that like, this is your city, so it's also your responsibility. Like, you're also part of it. You're also someone who has to step up and help to make it work. And so there's that kind of two sides to that for me.
People often feel very disconnected from local government. I think in a lot of ways it's less democratic than national government, you know? Because you go online, you read the newspapers, you always know what the president's up to. Congress and the Senate, everyone pays attention. I think a lot of people have no idea what goes on at a local level. It's functionally invisible. It makes it, you know, kind of undemocratic in practice.
Yeah, I mean, that's why like good local news coverage is so important. And that's why that like talk to each other, community organizations that help to keep their members or their constituents in the loop about what the government's doing. Like all of that work, that like civil society work, that community work is so important because if people don't know what's going on, then how can they participate? How can they actually make a difference?
You know, speaking of help from outside, I was actually curious, how much communication have you had with the Washington State Democrats? Has there been much, play-by-play there? Have they been, you know, since you won the primary, at least, they got to take you seriously?
Not really. I mean, like, I know lots of Democratic Party, like, politicians and, you know, elected officials, basically, right? But not, like, I wouldn't say, like, the party per se I haven't sat down with anyone from the party in some kind of official capacity.
Do you think they're waiting for the general to finish so they can see how it all plays out, or?
I'm not sure that that's how politics works here. I mean, I might be wrong. Maybe I'll get like a very
I'm taking it from you.
Call after the election, but I mean, I think, you know, these are nonpartisan races, and so it's not like I didn't run in a Democratic Party primary or something like that, right? And so it's a nonpartisan position, and politics in
yeah, they're pretty
anyway. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't like seen the Democratic Washington State Democratic Party kind of like act as an I got full endorsements from all the legislative district Democrat groups in Seattle, and so those are, you know, every legislative
throw your
district
fireball at me.
with, you know, membership of folks in that district, and so I went through all of their processes and, you know the leadership of a lot of those groups.
I just know you're going to need, of course, cooperation. Stay in there with all the threats going around. You know, Trump saying he'll remove federal funding grants to blue cities who disobey.
Oh, and yeah, I mean, it's like if I, assuming I win this race, right? Getting on the phone, building those relationships with the governor's office, and I mean, I already have relationships with a lot of state legislators, but deepening those relationships is going to be super important because we need that, you know, tight coordination from the get-go.
Right. Do you intend to annex Bellevue?
You know, not sure that's within my power, but I would be very supportive if people in Bellevue wanted to pass a tax on big business, kind of like we have in Seattle, that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
And probably good for Bellevue, honestly, as well.
Yeah, they were increasing those Amazon job losses probably disproportionately. What was it, like 2,400? Something in that
A lot of tech layoffs at the moment, and yeah, Amazon being a big recent example.
What do you think the future for the city is like economically? Because right now, obviously, like big tech city, we've been seeing mass layoffs in that sector due to AI consolidation. Who knows what they're up to? Do you think Seattle might fall on hard times as a consequence of that?
I mean, I do think there are big, important questions about the economic future of our city and our region that the city needs to be a real partner in helping to figure out. We really have been riding this tech wave for the last couple of decades, and I think there's been an assumption built in also to the way that city government works that that's just going to continue, right? We're going to just have more and more and more tech jobs, and obviously the tech industry is going to continue to be an anchor of our economy, right? And we want that, we want those jobs. But I think that there are big questions with AI, right? And seeing these layoffs happen, I don't think we can assume that it's just going to be like grow forever and ever. And yeah, I mean, I think that it's really, it's going to be important to look at other directions that our economy can develop, and I'm really interested in having Seattle be more of a leader in the green economy. Are there ways that we can encourage alternative energy investments here? Like working with the port, can we have Seattle become a place where we're actually building like hybrid electric vessels, right? Like there are cool things that I think that we can do. And I think that's going to be a really interesting conversation in the years ahead, because we want this to be a place where we have good jobs, and and we should be like thinking about what that looks like.
It really does feel like a city with an infinite potential.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the big ones, right? Access to sea. We've got lots of land around, but like just in terms of the natural environment where we're positioned on the West Coast. It always seemed kind of a waste to me, I guess, that like you think tech, you think San Francisco. There's a lot of it here in Seattle. There's the old old Google building up in Fremont, all the the old Microsoft Center, and they got the Amazon bubble downtown. You see it all over the place. I'm glad that people locally are being provided jobs, even if now they all live in Bellevue, which should be annexed to because they're taking our jobs. But it has always felt odd to me. I know a lot of people come up here to study natural sciences, for example, right? Because what a beautiful place. Yeah, green energy sector. That'd be a pretty nice way to go about it. Whatever's viable. I don't know. I've had such a difficult time, I think, staying optimistic about the ability for, legislative solutions to manage the problems that American cities are going through. It seems like there's this general downward track of urban decay all over the country, right? Especially since COVID. And I know some cities have managed to tick upward a little bit. I know that this is for a lot of people, almost like the main thing they vote on, right? The idea that there's something fundamental to these cities that has been lost or is eroding. There was a question I saw pitched to you recently that got some kerfuffle about homeless encampments in parks, which I think that probably at this point no one in America is a stranger to, but especially here in Seattle, we've always had a decent one. And, well, actually, I guess I'll just ask you directly, what would you do as mayor about, you've got camps pitched in Cal Anderson, what's your approach to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. We need a lot more emergency housing and shelter. We need places that we can actually navigate people to inside, because what, Harold's administration is doing is, pretty aggressively sweeping people from place to place, but without meaningful offers of shelter and support. And this has been documented extensively. There's some really good Seattle Times coverage of this. And also, it's like you don't need to read a Seattle Times article to know this, because you just talk to people and you just look around, right? And it's been actually one of the surprising things about this campaign to me is the extent to which, as I talk with people around the city in different neighborhoods, residents, business owners, like people see what's going on, right? They're like, okay, there's an encampment here. The city's going to sweep it. It's going to just, these people are going to move to the next neighborhood, and then they're going to be back here in a week. And there's this palpable frustration with how this approach is not working, right? And so we desperately need to open more emergency housing and shelter. This can be tiny house villages, micro modular shelter. I've got a proposal around trying to get some folks into vacant units in our affordable housing sector. We just need to get people inside, right? And so, I mean, absolutely, people have an expectation and desire that their parks are clear and available for their intended use, and that makes sense. But like, we have to actually be getting people inside because it's just not working what we're doing right now.
Do you ever feel like this is the main thing that people vote on sometimes? I mean,
Oh yeah, I mean, I really think that homelessness is probably the top thing that people are voting on right now. I mean, there's affordability as well, but yeah, I mean, homelessness. And when I think about my administration, right, I know that regardless of what all I might want to do, right, the number one thing that I'm going to be judged on is whether I'm able to move the needle on homelessness, whether I'm able to dramatically reduce the number of people who are sleeping unsheltered on our streets.
yeah, it's a tough issue. I know it's also across the board, the entire United States is
It is, but Seattle's a national outlier. Like, we have,
sure.
I was just looking at
Oh,
it today. If
right.
you look at our homeless population, like 58% is unsheltered.
Whoops.
Compare that to Boston.
Ooh.
So Boston has a lot of homeless people too. 6% are unsheltered. So just in terms of the number of people who are
Well, I
sleeping
have a
outside
silk
with nowhere
touch
to go,
pickaxe.
we are just off the charts compared to comparable cities, other deep blue cities in America. So we are doing a very bad job here.
I didn't
Yeah.
know it was that bad.
It's that
I
bad.
actually didn't know it was that bad.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yes.
50.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, fun stuff, huh? Here, I'm getting told that we have a finite amount of time. Is that right? Hey, just want to say it's been a delight to directly pitch questions to you. I really hope you get it.
Thank you. It's great to be.
I think I'm hosting this, so if you have a question that you'd like to ask our fine mayor-to-be, hopefully crossing fingers, then please put your hand up. Yeah, that too. Hit it.
So I'm from Romania, and earlier this year they had a pretty big election between like the fascist guy and the center-left guy, and the center-left guy ended up winning, and then everyone forgot about him. Like, I have not heard of anything he did in the 9 months since he took office. So I guess my question is, what are you planning to do? Like, if you win, how do you plan on staying relevant and like in the public eye?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I guess the shortest answer is I really think, and again, coming from my perspective as a community organizer who cares very much about people staying involved, being involved, I really want to find a way to have a different kind of relationship with the public. And, I think about the way that we've done my campaign, right? And it's funny because before I decided to run for office, like, I'm not a social media person at all. But, with the help of my team, we've been using social media, and I think fairly effectively, right? And so we talked a little bit before about kind of telling the story of the administration, the things we're trying to do, like showing the success that we have, showing the obstacles we face. And so I really want to find a way that we're doing that publicly, right? And so that could mean, putting out regular videos, having, regular press conferences. Really, often mayors kind of hide, right? Like, and they don't want to be in the news because, what if it's bad news? But I really think that being out there and trying to having this both this kind of educational function of like, here's how government works, here's how we're trying to work for you, and having that be a two-way street where people are also invited to keep, giving feedback, giving ideas. So I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I really want to figure that out because I think it's important.
All right. You.
Hi, my name is Scott Aldridge. My question is on revenue, specifically the relationship between Seattle and Olympia. Do you think Seattle has adequate taxation tools? And what do you think Olympia could do to help Seattle out?
Yeah, great question. No, we don't have adequate revenue tools. And as you probably know, we have the second most regressive tax system in the country now here in Washington State. And that's largely due to the fact that we don't have state and local progressive income tax. And I believe I saw recently, I think that some of the legislators might be proposing an income tax on millionaires in the next session. So that would be really interesting to see how that pans out. But that's really kind of something that we need, and that would also give Seattle the opportunity to use that tool here locally. So as mayor, I will absolutely be working with our legislative delegation to fight for that, to ask for that. And there are other tools, too, that I think Olympia could give us. Another thing that I support, so we have the Jumpstart payroll expense tax here, right, which is our tax on wealthy corporations. In the last session, there was kind of a statewide version of a similar tax proposed that would have included a credit for Seattle businesses that pay the Jumpstart tax. And that's a really good idea because it would basically level the playing field a little bit so that there wouldn't be this huge difference between the tax environment in Seattle and in Bellevue, because we have seen, Amazon and some other companies potentially moving some jobs over to Bellevue to avoid that tax. So there's a ton that Olympia can do, and I'm a big a believer in progressive revenue, and really looking forward to working with Olympia to try to get more tools.
Yo, I can upgrade my
How about you?
pickaxe.
Hi. You yourself have even noted that we have notably more conservative city council since the prior rotation, namely with Morales and Nelson. If you become mayor, how do you project your working relationship to be with them? How do you plan to handle any sort of obstacles or headbutting? Come in contact.
Yeah, great question. And of course, we will have some turnover on the council for next year, right? I think that Dion Foster is overwhelmingly likely to be replacing Sarah Nelson, and then we'll have a new District 2 council member as well, likely Eddie Lynn, and Alexis Mercedes Rink will be reelected. So, I think even if we don't have a super strong progressive majority, I really do think that we can make progress on some issues. And if I prevail in this race, I think that's going to send a pretty strong message about the way that things are going, the way the wind is blowing, what voters want right now. And so I think that might make some of the other council members who have been taking some pretty conservative votes recently, that might soften them up a little bit to moving in a more progressive direction. So I think that we can assemble majorities on some issues. Of course, we're not going to be able to get super transformative progressive legislation passed at least until 2028, I guess, after the district council elections. But I really also think that on homelessness, all the council members genuinely want to see progress. And so I'm really hopeful that I can establish good working relationships with all the council offices, even if there are things that we are not aligned on, and we can make progress on that and some other issues.
Oh, please, right up here with the red shirt.
With the scary stuff going on with the Trump administration and ICE, I was just wondering, what would you do to counter all the chaos?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a vital question and a big question. I think the first thing is to make sure that we're all united. And when I say we all, right, that means the city government, the mayor's office, working with the city attorney's office, and being kind of fortifying our constitutional shield and being ready to file injunctions, to fight whatever's coming down the pike legally. And also it means the city working really closely with advocates and organizations, right? And definitely the Washington Immigration Solidarity Network, and all the groups that are doing the hard work of protecting immigrant communities, making sure that the city's supporting their work, right? Funding legal aid, funding other forms of support. And also that all of us, right, in the event that Trump does send federal agents or federal troops into Seattle, that we're prepared for that, right? That our police have been trained and are protecting us, and that all the folks who are going to stand up and protest know how to do that safely, and that we're de-escalating and trying not to give Trump those fireworks that he wants. So there's a lot of aspects of how we prepare. But yeah, I think we do everything we can to prevent that from happening and to not make Seattle an attractive kind of target. But also we have to acknowledge that it might still happen, and we have to be prepared for that eventuality too. And of course, working with the county, working with the state. So just and also learning from the cities where this has happened, right? And having those strong relationships with the mayors in LA and DC and Chicago and all that.
Oh, somebody's being pointed at. Please.
Hi.
Howdy.
So I was thinking, with the homeless population, I know getting people into housing is really great, but I also know that takes time. And I was thinking about specifically the World Cup next year is going to be in Seattle, and I know because I've seen it in the past when a lot of big sporting events are happening, they tend to also try to sweep a lot of homeless people out. Is there a plan? At least, is there an idea of a plan in place so that we don't basically have to sweep a bunch of people out of Seattle? Because that's 7 months away. Trying to think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and exactly what you just said, right, happened when we had the MLB All-Star Game here, right? And they basically swept everyone out of downtown, but that just pushed people to other neighborhoods. So we don't want that to happen again. And so that's really, I think, in terms of implementation, that's going to be the top priority for the first 6 months of next year under my administration. Is how do we make sure that there's going to be immense pressure for downtown and adjacent neighborhoods to be clean and welcoming, etc. So how do we do that and actually get people inside? And so I think my goal would be to stand up several new tiny house villages in that space of time. And also open up some, indoor space and, like, as much as possible, get the folks who are downtown inside with shelter or with the services and support that they need. So, I mean, that's going to be it's an ambitious goal, but, like, we absolutely have to do that because it's just not. I mean, it's really harmful for the people who are sleeping outside, and it's not fair to the other neighborhoods if we're just sweeping people around.
Please, right ahead.
Hi, I'm Josh. I've been thinking about the rising cost of childcare lately, and I believe I saw on my ballot recently that there's a measure to get 600 new subsidized childcare slots, and that's a great start, but it feels like a baby step in the right direction. I don't know if you have a plan to potentially expand on something like that in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're referring to is the Families Education Preschool and Promise Levy, right, which is also on your ballot this fall, and I definitely encourage people to vote yes on that. So that will somewhat expand the kind of subsidized childcare that the city provides to folks who are, qualify. There's a number of qualifications to kind of participate in that program, but it is a baby step. And yeah, so. There's a number of sides of the childcare crisis. Like, as you probably know, it's both that it's totally unaffordable for families who want to put their kids in childcare, and childcare workers get paid very low wages. And so it's just the whole industry is in crisis. And basically we need to be treating childcare as a public good, and we need to be funding it as such. And so part of it is going to be, how much money can we come up with here in Seattle to further subsidize childcare? So that's one reason why I'm so big on progressive revenue, because I know that in order to make real progress, we are going to need to raise new revenue. There's other things the city can do too, beyond just finding more money to subsidize it, because it's also a matter, like, it's hard to find locations that are appropriate for childcare facilities. And so if the city, because there needs to be outdoor space and there's a lot of regulations, rightly so, right, around what that space looks like. So if the city can do more to make sure that, for example, when we're building a new building, right, that we have space for childcare in that building, right? And I think.
Oh crap! I don't want to fly. Stop it! No.
That will also help to bring the.
Avoid the tornado. Is there an Enderman in here? No. Defender of the Outer Realm, Ender Guardian Crystal. Okay, so I got another food item. I have a super shield. Is there a quick way out? Where'd I come in from? Kinda looks like they just sealed the exit. Oh. Come on, I just killed your boss. You're not taking me out. The fuck just hit me? So I need to kill a bunch of those bugs then. Okay. Why am I floating? I have 30 minutes of slow fall. That way. I don't even really know if I want that one, but why not? You know, if not for the enchants, that would be a baller sword. Wait, what? That implies I've been here before. That's not the stuff from the one I was just at, so I've been here before on a different trip. That's interesting. Is there any way to get rid of this fucking slow falling? Jesus. Like, what if I want to go down? Yeah.
Price down just by having more availability of it and having that kind of technical assistance or assistance finding space. So it's kind of a big thing, but I really want to convene people who know the sector and come up with a roadmap and hopefully be able to do some tackle some big pieces of that like in my first term. Another thing I've talked about on the campaign is free K-8 summer care. Because you're a working parent and you have a school-age kid, and then school left out for the summer, and like, what are you supposed to do with your kid, right? And so if we can work with our community centers and provide more summer programs for free or cheap, then that's another good thing we can do too.
Oh, the hand up in the back, wearing a blue or a black long sleeve. Yeah.
What do you plan to do about the federal welfare funding crisis that's about to happen?
You're talking about SNAP. Yeah. Right, good question. And I mean, I support the things that the current mayor and the city and the state are doing to try to compensate for the potential loss of SNAP benefits, right? So I think the city's making available like $4 million for like local food banks. There's a lot of efforts, obviously, right now to bolster funding and support at local food banks and other kind of food security programs. So I support all of that. I mean, I think another thing, just thinking about, food security more broadly, because even not thinking about the SNAP benefit cuts, right, food insecurity has been going up and up as just groceries have been becoming more expensive. This is sort of kind of coming out of the pandemic, and if you look at the amount that people actually get in their SNAP benefits, $6 a day or whatever, it's just like, it does not go very far. And so our food banks and other food security programs are really overstretched. One thing that I've been thinking about that was suggested to me by some people who work in the kind of intersection of food and education is that the city might be able to guarantee like free school meals for all kids, right? Kind of layering on top of the existing federal and state programs. And that would actually be a fairly low-cost intervention that could just really improve the situation for families with kids in Seattle.
Oh. To the gentleman in the coat?
Yeah. Hi. It's Benjamin. Thank you again for joining us. I just have a quick question on about like the street cleanliness. One thing that I've noticed, I've traveled to Europe, and one of the things that people really talk about is that they just feel a lot of pride in like the how their streets are clean, and they talk about how it informs their behavior and it makes them a lot more protective, but also feel a greater bond.
Oi!
It's just something Europe does more of in general. Do you have any plans or any or any hopes or aspirations for like, I don't know, like a fleet of street sweepers or something maybe more manageable?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think the first thing I think of is just going to the cause of lack of cleanliness on our streets, and I think our unsheltered homelessness crisis is a big part of this, right? When you have so many people who don't have space to, like public bathrooms, right? Like we have just too many people who are living outside right now, and one of the results of that is a lot of lack of cleanliness. I mean, the amount that the city spends just like cleaning human feces is quite kind of a lot, right? And so definitely providing more public bathroom facilities is a high priority for me. And I'll have to dig into like what the city currently spends and does in terms of just direct street cleaning. But yeah, I would like a cleaner city too. And I would also like, homes for people to live in so that they're not forced to perform basic bodily functions outside.
If I could add just really quickly, I want to say, I think this is also one of those like faith in civic democracy issues where the more a person cares about their neighborhood, the more they want to see it cleaned. I remember my parents telling me when I was growing up, the neighborhood they lived in, they were in, Georgia, Texas, whatever. But like people would clean up the trash off their own street because it would blow in. There wasn't that much of it. Once there's too much of it, it feels like you're fighting too much of an uphill battle. People stop caring, and then the issue gets monumentally worse, Again, I grew up in LA. I've been to cities much dirtier than Seattle. But you can tell when you're in a neighborhood where everyone there, keeps it kind of nice, and they've got like, a bench outside their front lawn or something, and they've been sitting there for 40 years. Just, it feels nice to see people invest in their community. So
yeah, no, and I do have some ideas around how we can get more like people participating in cleaning up their neighborhoods. But you're totally right. It only works when it's at a certain level, right? If it just gets too bad, then people like just kind of turn away from it, and there just is not something they feel. Yeah, but it would be great to have a situation where more just like people. I'll say like with the Transit Riders Union, right? One of our longtime founding members, Pauline, she has this persona, the Transit Fairy, and she just like spends all of her time cleaning up garbage near transit stops, and she's just like so diligent about it, and it's just amazing. And she's not deterred by the levels of filth, but yeah, she just spends all of her time cleaning up, and people really appreciate it. And
she's
it's just
she's
stronger than us, exactly. And yeah, I would love to create a situation where more people around the city just feel that sense of ownership, and will just like pick up trash on their way to the grocery store. Or
that's hero stuff, really. No, that makes a real difference.
Yeah, she's like a saint.
Okay. Green hat. Blue hat with green brim.
Thank Bench for that. It's a bit of a strange design, but I do like it. Hi, I'm Jenny Olander. I'm the community manager for Progressive Victory. My claim to fame is that Hassan Piker butchered my name live on stream. I am not a native to your fine city, although I have spent the last few days here, and it has been absolutely wonderful. I was wondering, the urbanism here is far beyond anything that I've ever seen or lived in. And I was wondering what kind of messages you would have to mayoral candidates, say, in the Midwest, in the second biggest city in Nebraska, what they could do to maybe have some more urbanism and faster buses, maybe a potential light rail system.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear you say that, because I think we have a great urbanist community here, and I think if you ask people here, they will be able to point to many other places where they feel the urbanism is better than it is here. So maybe the grass is always greener. But yeah, I guess I'll say a big factor in urbanism is density, right? And the more housing we have, like the more people are living in the city, the easier it becomes to do things like provide great public transit and other urban amenities. So yeah, I don't know, maybe like zone for denser housing. That's not really good advice for like individual activists. But I guess I'll say, so like I've spent my career, I co-founded this organization, the Transit Riders Union, and we fought for better public transit, more affordable public transit. And so yeah, you like get together with other people in your city and find, whether it's public transit or walkable neighborhoods, like find something to fight for and go and hound your elected officials until you get it.
There are so many like American small town, like the old town area of every small town. It's the one street that goes through, and it's actually like nice, old but nice. It's crazy. We just forgot. we forgot how to do that. You know, you can see like the remnants of brick row houses, and then you've got what used to be a saloon and everything, and then everything around that is like suburbia, one house per square mile. You know.
Yeah, I feel like one thing we really need to relearn in the U.S. is just like mixed use, right? Like what the magic that happens when you have like residences and small businesses and parks, like everything is just all mixed together. And that's part of what like makes New York City such a great city too, right? Is you just like every block is like its own city where just everything is happening.
And it's what a lot of people love about Capitol Hill as well, where you can have a park and a single family residence and a big apartment block all together, right next to each other. And it's probably the main reason why that's the most lively neighborhood, you know? Stuff to walk through. It's dense enough that businesses can afford to stay open based on foot traffic. You don't got to drive there, so less parking. Anyway, you know, imagine a lot of people here are fans of urbanism as well. They've probably heard the spiel before, but it's important. It's important to talk about. Here, all the way in the back. Oh, got it, yeah.
Testing. As our city's public transport improves, do you have any plan to coordinate with the surrounding municipalities, you know, for people commuting in, whether for work or any other reason, to get, you know, just better coordination within the region itself?
Yeah, and actually this, like, a little bit of history. So back in 2014, there was a funding measure on the ballot countywide, a King County funding measure to fund King County Metro Transit Service. And it was on like the April ballot. It was a sales tax, unfortunately, right? A regressive, unpopular tax. And it failed. It failed at the ballot. And so what happened was that the city of Seattle decided to go it alone. And so that same fall, there was a city of Seattle ballot measure to fund transit service that passed. And then Seattle used that money to basically purchase service from King County Metro. And so that's what we've been doing since then. That measure was renewed in 2020. But what that's meant is that we've been, you know, adding bus service, improving bus service within the city of Seattle, but the rest of the county, not so much. And so what I would really like to do is work with the next King County executive to chart a course to another regional measure so that we can be improving bus service in a coordinated way across King County. Because especially as the Link Light Rail system, right, is expanding and we have stations opening up around the county, like we really need more bus service, and we need to make sure that we're doing that coordination because, yeah, it's a region, right? Like so many people who work in Seattle live in South King County or even in other counties, right? And so we absolutely need that kind of coordination.
We got just time for one more question. The powers that be, but 3 more. Well, I can't read at a distance. You've got the mic.
Yeah. Hello. I'm one of the Washington State leads for Progressive Victory, and we have a great group of people, volunteers here that are going to go canvassing after this. And then you obviously are the co-founder of the Transit Riders Union. So I was wondering how you could use these volunteer groups going into your mayorship to like kind of bolster your power and make sure that you know, your priorities are getting done.
Yeah, great question. And I mean, I think there's a lot of pieces of my platform of like, you know, potential legislation I want to put forward. I mean, maybe to just give an example that's related to public transit, right? I would love to see the city pass a law which would require at least large employers to actually subsidize or pay for transit passes for their workers, right? Because the situation right now is that if you work for a big tech company like Amazon or Expedia, right, you're going to get a fully subsidized transit pass from your employer as like a perk of your job. But if you work as a Starbucks barista or a checker at Whole Foods, right, you're not going to get anything. And so I think this is like a great thing to put forward, but it's only going to work if we have people, like I said before, kind of providing that pressure from outside. So what I envision is working with organizations like yours and other community groups and, you know, labor unions, identifying like what are those policies that they feel that you can organize around, right? That's a hot issue for your members. That's something that you could get out there and knock on doors and talk to people at light rail stations and that people would want to see happen. So to put something forward in a way that then provides an opportunity for you all to go out and help to build support for it, right? To you know, help to get you know, write letters to the editor, get like pieces in the paper about how people are clamoring for this. Come and testify at a city council meeting, write emails to your council members, right? So doing all those things that help to create that sense of public support and inevitability that can help us to get legislation like that across the finish line, and also like open to ideas, right? So if there are issues that are, hot for your members that you feel like this is a really urgent thing that the city needs to tackle, right? We'll have that two-way communication
Okay, how does
so
that
that we
affect
can maybe
diving?
take those things up.
It's huge here, especially. Too.
Okay,
I mean, the light
definitely
rail does a
re-rolling
pretty
that.
good job connecting the community. When they finally connect the light rail line across the 90, what line is that going to be?
You mean like the line going to the east side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the one? They haven't opened that one station. I was waiting on that for ages and ages. Well, anyway, I mean, it's easy to get in Seattle. Right?
Perfect.
It's like very easy compared to a lot of other American cities. So just a good opportunity here. I didn't see who went up first because I was busy yapping. Oh, over there? Yeah, with the pride hat.
Washington team, and I had a question because one of the projects that we are talking about a lot and are likely going to be working on after your election is Whole Washington. And I was wondering, is there anything that you can do with the mayor's office of Seattle to sort of throw your weight behind that project, which is, of course, pushing for universal health care throughout the entire state of Washington?
Yeah, I've personally endorsed Whole Washington, and I know that a lot of members of the Transit Riders Union are excited about it and have helped with various of their signature gathering campaigns. I don't know specifically, but I'm certainly open to that, right? I mean, I think that healthcare access is going to be already is a huge issue, and it's going to continue to be a huge issue in the years ahead. And I mean, I personally right now, like, I purchase health insurance through the exchange, through the Washington Health Plan Finder or whatever. And I know that premiums are just like jumping way up.
Oh, yeah, like especially right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then of course there's the danger of people being kicked off Medicaid, right? And so I would hope that first of all, just that healthcare access is going to be a really top issue in the legislative session coming up. But yeah, obviously what we actually need is universal single-payer healthcare. And so I don't know exactly what that looks like, but definitely game for trying to use my position in the mayor's office to advance that.
All right, and this time for real, we've got one more. And how about you in the front?
Okay. I just wanted to ask, if you are elected mayor, what will you do to protect Seattle citizens from ICE?
Yeah, so, ICE activity is likely to keep ramping up. The first thing is to really be working very closely with all of the organizations that are rooted in immigrant communities that are doing the hard work of making sure that people don't have to attend immigration hearings alone, right? And doing support for immigrants and their families, like when a detention happens. And so the city needs to be a partner in that work, make sure that we're supporting, funding legal aid, and also making sure that our police department is protecting people. I was talking to some folks at educators, and they're all worried about their students and the security of their school buildings, right? And so they have a policy of not allowing ICE in, but like, who's going to enforce that, right? And so how can we make sure that our police department is really protecting people? I support a lot of the things that the current administration is doing along these lines as well. We can't have masked, unbadged ICE agents just kind of yanking people into vans. So we need to do everything we can to prevent that, including, again, making sure that our police department is ideally intervening in unlawful ICE operations. It's also something that, we all have to participate in. And so making sure that all of us know, like, what to do when we see ICE activity in terms of documenting it. So it's a big thing, and something that the city needs to be absolutely on top of, and also fighting in the courts in every way that we can.
Everyone, I was not told what to say after the allotted questions were asked, so I'm just going to free ball it and say thank you all so much for taking the time to come out here. Obviously, your work ain't done, but thank you for the questions. They were excellent to a T. And I'm being signaled via hand signal that I should also shout out the wonderful organization that made all this possible. Of course, Progressive Victory, who has done phenomenal work around the. Yeah. They do. They're good. They do. They do wonderful work because I know there are people watching who are part of it. They do wonderful work, canvassing and phone banking. There are a lot of people who, they get engaged in politics online, usually in the form of consuming other people's opinions on what's going on. And I think that engaging with politics only in that way can be a little bit distressing sometimes, especially because the world's not exactly getting better in a hurry right now. I think it's important to get involved. Gets folks involved. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for the wonderful questions and for your time. And, of course, Katie Wilson for your time.
Yeah, it's great to be here. And my last word is vote, right? Election day is coming up on Tuesday, November 4th. And so if you're a voter in Seattle or in Washington State, get your ballot in and get your ballot to a drop box if you can. Because of the federal shutdown, we are not confident in USPS's ability to get things postmarked in time. So definitely put your ballot in the drop box by November 4th.
I concur. You guys should vote. You should vote. And one last thing I'd like to shout out as well: the Progressive Victory could not possibly get this done without, some kind of organizational income. Now, I wish I'd brought this prop myself, but I forgot because I'm an idiot. Oh, you want to give me yours? Mine's red and shiny. No, please. If you want to become a member of PV, which I think for a mere $5 or more, that's up to you. $5 a month, you get a shiny card. I think that's market value too. So if anything, you're losing money not getting it. Again, mine's red. You can support an organization that does a lot of very good work.
My love.
Feel good about yourself. And
My love.
Oh my God, there we go.
But also you can sign.
Sorry about that. I don't know what was going on. I had it open. It's just I had to tab over for it to be like, hey, yeah, I exist. Hi, Mooney. I've kind of ascended to God mode, which I'm happy about. Pretty sure I've opened these before. Guess it's kind of hard to check from there. Yeah. Okay. Oh man, I don't have step height anymore. Wow, the raid solved itself. Amazing. Am I just not gonna get meat? Huh. Okay, there should be one more in here somewhere. Sweet. Oh my god. It wasn't that one? No, it's this one. Well, at least I don't have to worry about breaking extra blocks.
If Savika was about to kill Vi and then...
Boom! Headshot!
Caitlyn blows her fucking head off, I would be asking, wait, what where did this come from? Caitlyn, the inexperienced, by-the-book aspiring police officer, is suddenly a hardened killer who has no qualms about murdering someone she has never seen before. The final plot point I want to discuss is Vi bringing down the water tower. This moment, straight up, requires suspension of disbelief. I don't care how well-versed in the art of punching things Vi is. I don't care that she spent a lot of time in solitary confinement punching the wall. Slamming your fists into a steel construction beam is going to destroy every bone in your hand. So, how much of a problem is this? Well, the result of Vi punching the water tower is that it collapses. It had already been shown to be unstable, and Caitlyn had unsuccessfully attempted to bring it down. Vi is much stronger than Caitlyn, and so the idea that Vi could bring this thing down is not out of the question. She could maybe have kicked it or run into it or pushed it with Caitlyn, and the scene would have gone the same way. The reason why the writers decided to have Vi punch the steel beam instead of any of the above is clear. Vi fights with her fists, and yet they flip this moment on its head by having her decide to use her brain, and instead of attacking the Shimmer hobos, she turns and uses her fists to bring down the water tower. This shows quite clearly that Vi has learned a thing or two. She no longer confronts every obstacle head-on, and Silco is evidently wrong about her.
You don't know your limits, girl. It's what got Vander killed.
Vi displays here that she does know her limits. She believes she would not be able to take on 3 Shimmer hobos at once, and so she doesn't even try. She knows how fast and strong these fuckers can be, and even though these ones don't seem to be as dangerous as Deckard was, she doesn't want to find out. She also just got badly wounded by Savika because she lost her head at the wrong time, and she doesn't want to make the same mistake. Vi, once again, is learning. Additionally, she has just consumed a relatively small amount of Shimmer, which we already know has properties that include numbing pain and giving you increased strength. So maybe she was able to destroy the enemy's tower with her hands because she was juiced on Shimmer. Now on to why Vi and Caitlyn would decide to do this. The simplest answer is that they had no alternative way out, but let's dig in a bit. Vi is evidently more confident that she and Caitlyn will survive if they bring the water tower down on top of them than if she attempts to fight 3 Shimmer hobos and 2 of Silco's henchmen. It is important to note that Vi has just been badly wounded, and although she has drunk a healing potion, my guess is that it isn't all good under the hood. Vi will be fine, but I somewhat doubt that she is currently at full fighting capacity. Additionally, Vi's objective here is to locate Jinx, which means if she engages in a fight, she will need to kill everyone so as to ensure that she is not followed, which makes this scene not at all comparable to when she faced down Silco's men in episode 3, as in that scene she was trying to buy time. Bringing down the water tower is risky because it could easily injure or kill either her or Caitlyn, But I am not going to accuse this particular scene of being plot armor because they were simply lucky, and plot armor requires a little more than someone being lucky. There are, however, multiple instances of plot armor in Arcane, but I am waiting until Part 3 to fully explore those. In terms of general storytelling, I have a handful of things I want to highlight. Firstly, I will mention a couple of smaller things that I find notable before excavating some of the more detailed aspects of the narrative. Firstly, the writers needed to introduce a new faction, the Firelights, and the way they do this is to simply have one of Silco's men exclaim, "Ah, shit, the Firelights!" This is a very simple and natural way to do this, and also establishes that Silco's men are very much aware of who the Firelights are, and this then suggests that the Firelights have been a thorn in Silco's side for some time. We also have the rather amusing Chekhov's Power Fist and Chekhov's Death Ray, neither of which we will see later, of that I am absolutely certain. And we have this excellent shot of Jace, the man of progress, leaving Victor behind and directing his attention elsewhere. This is symbolic of the fact that Jace's status in Piltover has changed drastically, whereas Victor has remained proverbially backstage. And also because Victor is literally dying, whilst Jace is in the prime of his life. Something I have criticized multiple times in other films and TV shows is when characters tell each other their character traits.
That's your problem. Your first reaction is always fear.
But in Arcane, when this happens, it is the polar opposite in terms of the end result.
You know what your problem is? You expect everyone to give you what you want.
In this example, Vi tells Caitlyn and the audience that Caitlyn expects people to give her what she wants. What makes the Arcane example different from the Rebel Moon example is that we learn a lot more about Vi than we do about Caitlyn, despite the dialogue being exclusively related to Caitlyn. The dialogue literally tells us that Caitlyn expects people to give her what she wants, which is the surface level interpretation of the line. But as with so many things in Arcane, this line is layered with subtext and additional character information. This tells us that Vi has perhaps noticed this flaw in Caitlyn's character through their prior interactions, all of which involved Caitlyn trying to acquire information, and in Vi's eyes, not doing a very good job. It tells us that Vi is experienced in the art of lying, manipulating, and subverting, all of which are tools that are frequently used in the Undercity that Caitlyn doesn't have much or any experience with. It tells us that Vi pays close attention to how Caitlyn behaves, which is the first extremely subtle hint that she is potentially interested in her romantically, moments before things become more overt. It tells us that Vi views her relationships with other people as transactional, and that she has to offer something in order to get something. It is also important to note that this is only Vi's perspective. Vi is not a mouthpiece for the writers to spew their thoughts into the audience's brain. Vi is a character. Vi is absolutely stereotyping Caitlyn when she says this. Vi does not know Caitlyn well enough to conclude that she doesn't know how to deal with people, and her opinion of Caitlyn is largely informed by the fact that Caitlyn is a topsider. Vi believes herself to be plugged into reality, whereas she views Caitlyn as aloof and suffering from main character syndrome. This also tells us that this is simply how life is in the Undercity. And Caitlyn is obviously not used to this at all. She is used to being surrounded by people who are looking out for her and who have her best interests at heart. Caitlyn has never had to deal with people in this manner before. Caitlyn actually takes this information on board, as she is entirely motivated to do so, given that she was thoroughly established earlier as hating being given things without earning them. She is fully receptive to the idea that she has to work to get people to give her what she wants, and with Vi's help, she has started to understand how to do this. And we can draw all of that out of this one line of dialogue.
You know what your problem is? You expect everyone to give you what you want.
Depth and efficiency. If only more writers were skilled enough to execute their stories with this level of competence. The show juxtaposes Mel fondling Jace's gemstones with Victor obsessively experimenting with the Hex Core. Arcane does this a handful of times, but this example is my favorite because it is multi-layered. You could interpret this as contrasting Jace's love with Victor's love, in that Victor is too in love with his work to have time for any kind of a relationship with Skye. But I think this is far too simplistic an interpretation. This scene happens directly after Victor rejects Skye's romantic advances, and so this montage contrasts the fact that where Jace may have found love, Victor is unaware that Skye even likes him. Jace has become extremely successful. He was a total failure, and he was suicidal until Victor intervened. Jace became the man of progress, he became a counselor, he then indulged in the world of politics, and he is currently getting it on with the richest person in Piltover. Conversely, Victor is suffering, obsessing, and although he doesn't know it yet for certain, he is dying. Jace has time to celebrate and give Mel a good old power slam, whilst Victor doesn't even have time to sleep. Jace's attention has been focused elsewhere, whilst Victor has no such luxury. Another layer is the idea of trying to control something that you don't fully understand. Victor is, of course, trying to control the Hex Core and learn how it works, and he is failing to do so. Conversely, Mel is successfully controlling Jace, and she seems to know exactly how he works. Jace, meanwhile, has no idea that he is being controlled, and is blissfully unaware of what is actually happening. Another layer is that this is the first time we see Victor become
Oh my
extremely
god.
emotional,
The
slamming
tiniest
his fist on
mushroom
the table
island.
and yelling, which is contrasted as being at the other end of the spectrum in terms of the emotions Jace is experiencing, whilst giving Mel a shock blast.
Power slam!
Now regarding the visuals, we see the Hex Core bond with Victor's DNA, which is intercut with Jace depositing his DNA inside Mel, both of which are acts that have the potential to create life. Jokes
Gee,
aside,
thanks.
the animation and the
For
music
the
here is
analysis.
absolutely beautiful, which I know is true of Arcane as a whole, but I think the visual symmetry and the juxtaposition between
No
Jace
emotions?
and Victor at this point elevates this sequence to being masterful. Another similarly excellent juxtaposition is when the show intercuts Marcus setting up the blockade with Jinx lighting the flare. This contrasts Jinx potentially reconciling with Vi, with Piltover taking the first step towards separating itself from the Undercity. Are the writers simply telling us that as Silco's relationship with Jinx deteriorates, he comes closer to achieving his goal?
That was clearly some
Maybe,
pretty bad
but I think
lag.
there is a
Maybe-
little more to this. Why is this
Maybe that's why there
blockade
weren't any
being
missions?
erected? Jace ordered the blockade after he was provided false information by Marcus, and he wants to protect the city against further attacks by the Firelights. Or, in other words, fear. Jace orders the blockade because he is afraid of what will happen if he doesn't. Where Jinx has finally overcome her fear, Piltover has finally succumbed. Where one door opens, another closes. Where one character accepts their past, another is scared for their future. Did I mention that this show is incredibly good? There are many misunderstandings in Act 2 of Arcane. Caitlyn thinking Vi is just screwing around and isn't actually helping. Mel thinking Jace used her for sex and then left before she woke up. Victor thinking he is helping Rio when he is actually hurting Rio. Caitlyn and Vi's whole discussion whilst Vi is injured. Jinx thinking Vi is there for the gemstone, not her. But there is one specific misunderstanding that I want to focus on, partly because it is so unassuming, and partly because it is unbelievably well executed. And that is when Marcus pulls an Inception on Jace. Before I elaborate, I am going to quickly run through an example of a misunderstanding being executed incredibly poorly, and explain why that is the case, because I honestly think a lot of people take this kind of thing for granted. I was struggling to find an appropriate example, but I was then informed about a film from 2009 that I had not seen. A film that broke box office records upon release by achieving the largest midnight opening in US history, and a film that currently holds the 48th highest opening weekend box office. The Twilight Saga: New Moon. There is a miscommunication in the Twilight Saga: New
Wait.
Moon that is baffling.
The Twilight Saga made
hilarious,
money?
and reaches incredible levels of contrivance I thought impossible.
I knew the books
outside
made a
of
ton of money.
Amazon
I just didn't think the movies
At
did.
this point in the thrilling tale of Twilight, Edward has split up with Bella. Naturally, Bella goes cliff diving after realizing that every time she does something remotely dangerous, she hallucinates Edward because part of what she was attracted to was the danger of being around him. Which is already clunky as fuck, but wait, there's more. Edward's sister, Alice, is like a wizard or something. She gets visions of things sometimes and typically sees things that will facilitate teenage melodrama. Bella is then confronted by Alice, who asks, "Bitch, how the fuck are you alive?" Because, you see, Alice had a vision of Bella jumping off the cliff. But the vision conveniently cut off, so Alice believed that Bella had killed herself. Rather inconveniently, Edward decides to phone Bella's home to speak to her dad, and even more inconveniently, Jacob answers the phone and tells Edward, because, unrelated to this, Bella's dad is out arranging the funeral of his friend who died earlier in the film. So, Edward, working with the knowledge that Alice had a vision of Bella jumping off a cliff, and the knowledge that Bella's dad is arranging a funeral, concludes that Bella has killed herself, and so he decides to go to Italy in order to kill himself, and I'm not explaining that, so don't ask. That is what happened. Now, on to why this particular misunderstanding is ridiculous, comical, incredibly contrived, and relies on all people involved acting like fucking morons. Alice assumes that there is only one reason why someone would choose to jump off a cliff, which, as the film has already demonstrated, is not the case. Additionally, I have no idea why she had this vision in the first place. This isn't a character who only has visions of people dying, which means that she did just randomly have a vision of Bella going cliff diving. Additionally, Edward doesn't go to Bella's house to find out what happened. He also doesn't confirm whose funeral Jacob is referring to. He also doesn't question why Jacob is in Bella's house if her dad is supposedly arranging her funeral. He instead decides, well, that's all the evidence I need. Time to ask the Italians to euthanize me. Also, immediately after Edward destroys his phone in a fit of centenarian anguish, Alice tells Bella,
Oh, it's Edward. He thinks you're dead.
which means that Edward immediately fixed his phone in order to tell Alice that he wants to die because Bella is dead, but Alice did not respond to him and say, no, you fuck, she's alive, stop trying to make this Romeo and Juliet bullshit happen. Also, upon realizing what has happened, Bella doesn't try to immediately call Edward back herself. The only part of this scene that is not unbelievably stupid is that Jacob decides not to let Bella speak to Edward before hanging up the phone, and he does this for character-driven reasons, namely that he doesn't like Edward. So, to conclude, the characters in the Twilight Saga New Moon misunderstand each other because they assume things that they would have no reason to assume. They conveniently phrase things in very ambiguous ways so as to allow for their words to be misinterpreted, and they don't ask very obvious questions that would clear all of this up very quickly. In other words, it happens because the writers wanted it to. Right, that's enough of that. Back to Arcane and how it is very good and how Marcus pulls an Inception on Jace. Firstly, Marcus fabricates the idea that the Firelights are planning more attacks, which prompts Jace to quite reasonably say that they need to prevent this from happening. Marcus then says,
short of searching everyone who crosses the bridges, I don't know how we can.
And Jace then orders Marcus to do precisely this. Marcus wants a blockade, as this will make solving the Vi and Caitlin problem for Silco relatively easy, as if Silco fails to kill them in the Undercity and they attempt to enter Piltover, Marcus will then be able to intercept them at the blockade. He accomplishes this by using the Firelights not only as patsies for Jinx's attacks, but also by convincing Jace that they are going to attack again. Before Marcus leaves, he asks Jace about Caitlin releasing Vi, as Caitlin forged Jace's signature in order to do this.
I saw Caitlin Kiraman had a prisoner released on your order. Is there anything I can assist with?
As I said,
Aha!
this scene is initially pretty unassuming, but there are actually three things happening.
This is one of the
There are
critical.
three entirely different conversations
Let's say
taking
that, but it's
place
not.
simultaneously.
They,
Marcus is
they use the wrong
pretending
names.
to offer to help Jace
They use the
with
names for
whatever he is
Sephiroth,
doing with
not
Caitlin,
the-
as he is the sheriff and he had not been informed. And so, on the face of it, his question is entirely reasonable. Of course, what Marcus is actually doing is probing Jace for information that might help him intercept Vi and Caitlin. And the third thing to note, this is the first time Jace has heard about Caitlin releasing a prisoner. Because he is extremely busy, he is currently preparing his notes for the council regarding the Hex Core, he doesn't have time to worry about what Caitlin may or may not be doing in the Undercity, and so Jace doesn't reveal anything to Marcus.
No, we've got it covered.
Jace pretends that Caitlin is perhaps on some kind of secret mission on his behalf so as to avoid getting Caitlin in trouble. The additional layer of subtext in this scene is that Marcus believes that Jace, Caitlin, and Vi are all working together. The reason he believes this is because Vi knows who Marcus is, and the fact that she was present at the cannery in episode 3 means that Marcus may well consider her a loose end. Marcus may suspect that Vi knows that he was involved in Grayson's death. Marcus also knows Caitlin to be a pain in the ass when it comes to sticking her nose where it doesn't belong, and the fact that she released Vi, ostensibly on Jace's orders, after Marcus had fired her is extremely troubling to him. Marcus is likely very paranoid that they are onto him. As Jace said to him previously,
This corruption runs deep, Sheriff. I intend to root it out.
Jace's response confirms to Marcus that Caitlin is working with Vi on behalf of Jace to bring him down.
No, we've got it covered.
From Marcus's perspective, Jace has just confirmed that he is working alongside an ex-enforcer and an inmate who quite plausibly could have knowledge that would compromise him, and Marcus has every reason to believe that whatever they are doing is with the goal of rooting out corruption. He has a target on his back. Jace is, of course, not doing anything of the sort. Jace has no idea that Marcus is working for Silco. Jace didn't even know that Caitlin had released anyone from prison, which means that this scene is, in essence, a complex and multi-layered misunderstanding. In stark contrast to the scene in the Twilight Saga New Moon, the reasons why the characters do what they do in Arcane is thoroughly in line with their knowledge and their previous behavior, and is in no way contrived. Everything they do and everything they suspect of the other is absolutely drawn from what is driving them at this point in time. The writers didn't start at the conclusion and work backwards, or if they did, they continued working backwards so as to properly and entirely justify why their characters say what they say. This is one reason why Arcane functions so well in general. The characters are incredibly detailed, and they are narratively tangled up with each other because of who they are, not because of what the plot decides is going to happen to them. This scene is absolutely incredible, and it lasts for only 60 seconds. The writers managed to deliver all of this with 2 characters and 1 minute of screen time. Much like Act 1, Act 2 of Arcane continues to be filled with significant consequences for the actions the characters choose to take. Here are a handful of examples. The consequences for Jinx losing her nerve and accidentally shooting Locke are that Locke is incarcerated, which leads to him being attacked by Vi, which in turn leads to Caitlin releasing Vi from prison and everything that comes afterwards. Which means that Jinx freezing up upon seeing the firelight that reminded her of Vi directly leads to her actually getting to see her sister again, which is rather poetic. The consequences for Caitlin investigating the attack at the Hex Gates and thereby disregarding the chain of command are that she is punished by being assigned the graveyard shift and is then caught in Jinx's explosion. The consequences for Silco telling Jinx to take some time off are that Jinx becomes emotionally triggered by the idea that Silco thinks she is weak, prompting her to do something rather risky. The consequences for Jace deciding not to reveal anything during his speech are that Mel has to come up with another way to get what she wants from him. The consequences for Jinx attacking the Enforcers are that the Council loses their shit, which leads to Jace being appointed as a counselor and investigating corruption. The consequences for Jace shutting down the Hex Gates in the name of safety are that he is pushed further into the world of politics and away from his scientific endeavors. The consequences for Heimerdinger not establishing meaningful professional relationships with any of the other counselors is that they vote unanimously to remove him from the council. The consequences for Marcus saving Vi are that his daughter's life is put at tremendous risk. The consequences for Vi attacking Savika impulsively and without assessing the situation are that she is caught off guard and badly wounded. And finally, the consequences for the Firelights intervening when they did are that Vi and Jinx are unable to reach any kind of resolution. We don't yet know who the Firelights are or what exactly is motivating them, but when this is revealed in Act 3, this becomes less a case of convenient timing and more a case of cause and effect. Act 2 of Arcane builds off of the incredibly strong foundations that were established in Act 1. The writers continue to explore extremely quickly and clearly what each character wants. What they are trying to accomplish within each scene is thoroughly set up in previous scenes, which means that the writers absolutely do not waste the audience's time. And the writers manage to achieve this level of clarity without dedicating lines of dialogue or entire conversations towards explaining themselves. The writing in Arcane is incredibly efficient, as virtually every line of dialogue serves multiple purposes. All characters remain extremely clearly defined. We know in detail what each character wants and how far they will go to get it, and we know what they don't want and how far they will go to avoid it. We see how they change, or don't, through the pursuit of their goals. We understand very clearly why they do what they do, and so even characters who are either morally grey or outright villainous at times remain consistently engaging. and a huge amount of this character information is communicated without the characters even opening their mouths. Despite not quite managing to hit the emotional highs of Act 1, Act 2 of Arcane is still absolutely top tier in terms of character work, world building, animation, voice acting, music, editing, and general presentation. There is not a weak link in Arcane, and the fact that a TV show this good came out of a free-to-play multiplayer esport is unfathomable to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please do leave me a like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Exploring the details of Arcane has been an extremely rewarding experience, not to mention quite a refreshing one. Currently, I plan to conclude this series with Part 3, and I don't intend to create a final autopsy for Arcane, as more than likely I will have said everything I want to say by the end of Part 3. If there is anything specific that you think I've missed, or that you would like me to cover in Part 3, then please let me know in the comments. Other than that, thank you so much again for your time, and I will see you
in Part 3.
Welcome back, randos, to the final part of my series analyzing Season 1 of Arcane. This video is going to focus on Act 3, so there will be spoilers for the entirety of Season 1. At the time of recording this, Season 2 has not aired, so there will be no spoilers for Season 2, but there will be some speculation. As always, if you have not watched Arcane yet, I strongly suggest turning this video off and watching Season 1 before continuing. Before we dig into the final chapter of Season 1 of Arcane, I will give a brief recap of what actually happens. Vi and Caitlyn have been captured by the Firelights, who are revealed to be led by Echo. They decide to return the gemstone to Piltover to ease tensions and prove that the Firelights were not responsible for Jinx's attacks in Act 2. Marcus intercepts them on the bridge and attempts to kill them and recover the gemstone, but before he can commit to this, Jinx...
Oh, I am fast as fuck. How am I meant to dodge the fucking chain attack? Yeah, how? How do I dodge that? Ow. I could have sworn there was boss music. Oh, you know what? Maybe that's tied into the music and sounds. Okay. Dodge into the ice attacks. Come on, change color, change to blue. I want to get 2 hits in. Damn it. You know, having super speed really helps. I think that might be intended. Come in here with speed too. Change to blue, change to blue, change to blue. Ah, crap. He broke my cannons! I don't get it, how am I... What the fuck am I supposed to do? Awakening, Mon, Malkuth.
There, on my page.
Okay, we can keep going. That's the fun part. Weak to ice. How do I dodge this? Eee! Oh, I'm so dead. As soon as I get launched, oh my god. Wow. Okay. Okay, do I need to bring the... How do I repair the cannon? I need to repair the fire cannon. Ow, how do I do that? Okay, like this.
Okay, it looks like you just got him to hit the crystals. Okay. I wonder how much damage that actually does. It changed color mid-attack? No fucking way, dude. Can I make an Echo Compass? Alright. Lost Compass Discovery. It's 8 shards. I do not have 8 shards. I don't have Skulk. I don't have a Skulk Catalyst. But no, it changed color mid-attack. Like that... No. This was vaguely close to it. Locate structure hashtag. Did that reset the boss fight? Also, wait, where the... Is this the... I don't think this is the same one. Actually, wait, I can check. I just placed a shitload of torches. Yeah, this isn't the same one. Where the fuck did I go? Gotta watch back my stream. Uh... 7,000, 7,000? Okay. Oh. Oh, that's a bit more definitive. Where the fuck is my stuff? happened twice. It changed twice in that phase. Thankfully, that meant it was the same thing, but what the fuck? Who thought that was okay? Who approved that? You have dishonored yourself. Good sir. You have cheated in the field of battle.
Jinx causes a massive explosion on the bridge, killing Marcus. Echo stays behind to fight Jinx, whilst Vi and Caitlyn continue into Piltover, and he manages to defeat her. Silco then takes her body to Singed, and she is pumped full of shimmer and revived. The Council of Piltover debates what they should do about the Undercity. After the explosion on the bridge, Jace ultimately decides to weaponize Hextech, and both he and Vi strike at Silco's shimmer facilities to destabilize his control of the Undercity. Jace then offers Silco's sovereignty, but in return, he must hand over Jinx. Shortly afterwards, Jinx captures Vi, Caitlyn, and Silco. Vi attempts to force her sister to remember who she is in order to protect Caitlyn. Silco tries to shoot Vi, and Jinx reflexively shoots Silco before firing a Hextech rocket at the council chamber in Piltover, just as they pass a motion to agree to Jace and Silco's terms. Let's begin by looking at Echo. Where was Echo when we last saw him? He witnessed Benzo, his boss and potential adoptive father, being murdered by Silco. He followed Silco and was able to tell Vi where Vander had been taken. After speaking with Vi, we do not see him again until Act 2. This means that Echo decided not to go with Vi, nor did he decide to take refuge at the last drop. Rather interestingly, had he done so, he may have inadvertently managed to prevent the tragic climax of Act 1, as he may have encountered Powder and managed to keep her emotions in check. What specifically happened to Echo after the events of Act 1 is unknown, so presumably he was overcome with grief, kept to himself, and eventually found what would later become the Firelight's hideout. This brings us to Echo in Act 2. He is extremely confident and highly skilled, and deliberate emphasis is placed on his acknowledgement of the passage of time. This doesn't mean a huge amount narratively, but it is a nice Easter egg for fans of the game that potentially will become more important in Season 2. His goal is clearly to destroy Silco's shimmer, and at this point we can infer that he essentially wants to fuck with Silco's wallet. Shimmer is critical to Silco's plan, and although Echo likely does not know about Silco's ultimate goal, he does know that Silco is a violent crime lord who is responsible for a huge amount of suffering in the Undercity, and at this point he would have believed Vi was also dead. Echo's choice of weapon is interesting because although the Firelights obviously have access to rudimentary weapons, such as sharp sticks and clubs, they also choose to use non-lethal stun grenades. Given that we never see anything like this stun crystal grenade thing anywhere else in the show, it is entirely possible that Echo, or one of his people, developed this technology specifically to be less than lethal. This choice of weapon therefore tells us that Echo does not want to kill people. That is a line that he has no intention of crossing, and he even prevents his Biker Mice from Mars buddy from executing Vi in episode 6. However, after Jinx murders the Firelight girl on the airship, Echo becomes enraged and charges at Jinx before he is forced to flee. Additionally, at the end of episode 7, Echo brutally beats Jinx but is unable to put her down. All of this shows us that Echo is clearly not the confident and intimidating gangster that he pretends to be. He absolutely reacts emotionally, and he relies heavily on his friends to keep him on track. This is one way that the writers remind us that Echo was the youngest of the group in Act 1, which means that at most he is 15 or 16 years old by the time we hit Act 2. His life experiences have forged him into something greater than he was, but he is still a kid who is way out of his depth. This brings us to Act 3. Echo and his men have been following Vi and Caitlyn for a while to work out what they are doing. Echo would of course have recognized Vi, realized that something did not add up, and so presumed that they were doing something shady on behalf of Silco. Echo is intensely distrustful of Vi. He does not speak to her as a friend or as an admirer as he once did, but as her captor. Even after Vi tries to explain, Echo has no idea what to think. He believed that Vi was dead, and then suddenly she shows back up accompanied by an enforcer and Jinx. From his perspective, she absolutely could be working for Silco. Jinx obviously already does, Caitlin could be a corrupt cop, and Vi could have been roped into working for Silco willingly or otherwise. Echo's admiration of Vi, followed by her apparent death, combined with his experiences as presumably a vagrant over the last few years, has hardened Echo into a totally different person to who he was as a child.
I'm sorry.
Granted, we don't really get to know Echo in F1, but we learn
No
enough
dolphin.
for this to be a drastic shift in his personality. Life has changed him. He has focused much of his attention on interfering with Silco's business, and so he directly asks Vi what appears to her and the audience to be an absurd question.
Are you working for Silco?
And Vi, of course, responds accordingly.
Fuck you.
Throughout Acts 2 and 3, Echo presents himself as being far more confident than he actually is. After Vi tells him,
I should have been there. For you. For everyone.
Echo advises her not to dwell on the past.
That's a good way to drive yourself crazy.
He claims to think that it is a waste of time worrying about things outside of your control and feeling guilty about what you could have done now that you have the benefit of hindsight. However, the very next line we get from Echo is,
If I just went with you that day, maybe none of this would have happened.
This line suggests that Echo is himself feeling guilty and is worrying about how he potentially could have prevented all of this misery, and rather than being a direct contradiction of his sentiments seconds earlier, this indicates that Echo has been down that path, and he is trying to make sure that Vi does not. Echo appears to have known that Powder and Jinx were the same person, as when he and Vi discussed the topic, this is not treated as any kind of revelation to Echo. He is also, quite understandably, far more pessimistic than Vi regarding Jinx, likely because where Vi has been in prison, Echo has been watching Powder's descent into madness. It is unclear at what point Echo realized that they are the same person, but it is entirely possible that he watched from a distance as Powder became less and less like his childhood friend. Rather importantly, this also means that when Echo attacked the airship and attempted to attack Jinx in a fit of rage, he was very aware that this was the same girl he once knew. He and the other Firelights built a shrine to all of the people they have lost to Silco and the Enforcers, including Vander, Benzo, Clagger, Milo, Vi, and Powder. There are at least 14 other faces on this mural, and Echo refers to them as the price of our freedom. He believes that he needs to continue the fight against Silco and the Enforcers, despite the fact that lives will continue to be lost, so as to ensure that these people did not die in vain. He shows this mural to Vi to convince her that Powder has been lost. But if anything, this accomplishes the opposite. Vi is, of course, herself present on this mural. This is because Echo believed her to be dead when she was actually in prison, but regardless, the fact that Vi is on the mural and yet is standing right next to Echo is evidence to Vi that Echo is wrong about Powder. Just like her, Powder is not lost. Echo's relationship with Caitlin is very tenuous as a direct result of her being an enforcer. He is willing to escort her back to Piltover due to the fact that Vi vouched for her, but he is unwilling to help her in any other manner. He doesn't like her at all because of who she is and where she is from. This is also why he is extremely reluctant to cooperate whatsoever with Marcus on the bridge, because he hates the Enforcers and he does not trust Marcus. Caitlin believes that Piltover is hunting the Firelights due to a simple misunderstanding, but Echo reveals that all of this is as a direct result of Silco's wealth and power. He doesn't know the specifics involving Jinx's bomb and Marcus's lie to Jace, but he does absolutely know that at least some of the Enforcers are working for Silco, as Echo was of course present when the shit hit the fan in episode 3, when Benzo was murdered and Marcus got paid. He therefore concludes, quite correctly, that Silco is puppeteering the Enforcers so as to turn their attention away from him and towards the Firelights, thereby removing one of his greatest obstacles. Echo is also smart enough to use the gemstone as a test for Caitlin. If she is truly not his enemy, as Vi is claiming, then she will be honest with him and explain what it is and why she wants it, which is exactly what happens. After Caitlin explains what the gemstone is, Echo says,
"Let us use it against him."
He believes that he potentially has the skills to be able to harness its power. As Echo has never seen this thing before, and as he, unlike Jinx, does not have Jace's notebook, I don't think Echo would have a hope in hell of being able to weaponize the gemstone. However, he is certainly not wrong for wanting to try. He agrees to go along with Caitlyn's plan, but his condition is that he personally be the one to get the gemstone back to the council.
Extremely
This is
long.
another smart move, as this will ensure that the council understands that the Firelights are not their enemy. It will also allow him to directly explain to the council what has been going on in the Undercity, which Vi and Caitlyn would only be approximately aware of. In League of Legends, Echo's abilities are centered upon time manipulation, with his ultimate ability allowing him to rewind time and undo both his movement and any damage he took over the last few seconds. This is not present in Arcane, although there are multiple references to the connection Echo has with time travel throughout the series, such as his first lines in the show,
Give me a few seconds.
as well as his use of a stopwatch to keep track of precisely how much time they have until their crystal bombs wear off. Neither of these are overt, neither of them are shoehorny, and none of them detract from the show for those viewers who are unfamiliar with the champion from League of Legends. The most extensive and direct reference to Echo's timey-wimey bullshit comes during his fight on the bridge with Jinx. He whips out his stopwatch, we then see Jinx and Echo appear as their younger selves, the animation style changes dramatically, and the music starts pumping. Much like Arcane as a whole, this is not storytelling that exists only for fans of the game. This is storytelling that exists primarily to service the characters and themes. The extra bit of magic is that the writers and animators were able to slide in a direct reference to Echo's toolkit from League of Legends, not only without detracting from what was actually happening in the scene itself, but by using this to show how Echo and Powder used to play as kids, and then contrasting this with the lethal stakes of their current battle. This idea may well have started with someone being like, okay, so Echo does time travel, and so we need to reference this in Arcane at some point. And then, because the writers are incredibly good at their jobs, they managed to turn what may well have been something mandated by the powers that be into something that is not only visually outstanding, but also very emotionally effective. This is how you do fan service. You do not service your fans at the expense of your story. You service your fans and you service your story. So, here is what we see in order. Kid Echo runs towards Jinx. Powder raises her pistol. Jinx fires it. Powder fires the same shot, but her bullets are paintballs. Kid Echo dodges the paint, whilst Echo dodges the bullet. Jinx fires another shot, which Echo dodges. Echo dodges bullets again. Kid Echo gets hit by paint. Powder celebrates, and Kid Echo is pissed off that he lost the game. In a nutshell, this sequence of events shows Echo getting shot by Jinx. Time then appears to rewind back to the start of the fight, the animation style switches back to normal, and Echo closes the distance very quickly, dodges 4 shots from Jinx, and subdues her with his club. During this stylized sequence, as Jinx raises her pistol to shoot at Echo, she transitions from Powder into Jinx, symbolizing a fundamental change in her character. Powder was not a violent child, and so as soon as she aims her pistol at Echo, she grows up. Willingness to hurt other people is part of what makes Jinx who she is. Additionally, in the background of the shots focused on Echo, we can see the firelight bugs, symbolizing who Echo has become. And behind Jinx, we see an ominous raven, seen frequently in the latter half of Arcane, and typically symbolizing a bad omen or bad luck. Again, something that is core to Jinx's character. This fight scene can be interpreted in a couple of ways. Echo and Powder used to play together, and after Echo pulls out his stopwatch, Jinx starts laughing and shakes her head before loading her pistol, indicating that this was a game that they played as children. Powder would shoot at Echo with one of the toy guns from the arcade, and it appears that Powder would usually win. Echo both envisions how their game used to play out, and he also baits Jinx into playing with him one final time, which is how he manages to defeat her. He gets Jinx to play by the rules that he and Powder played by as kids, which is why Jinx loses. Of course, it may be revealed in Season 2 that this stopwatch is literally a time machine, and Echo used it to see the future, learn Jinx's attack pattern, and then defeat her, but this is not necessary for the scene to function. This scene fully utilizes the strengths of the medium of animation to give us the kind of fight scene that could not be accomplished any other way. This is creative, effective, and beautiful to look at. A short while after the fight, Echo encounters Heimerdinger, recognizes him, and rather surprisingly, is not at all hostile towards him. Echo has been shown to be a rather hostile individual, understandably hostile, but hostile nonetheless. He has a very specific grievance with Piltover, and he recognizes Heimerdinger as being one of Piltover's counselors. In other words, from Echo's perspective, Heimerdinger is a large part of why the Undercity is the way it is, and so he has every reason to be fucking furious with him. However, on the flip side, Echo very recently beat his childhood friend almost to death, and as far as Echo is aware, Jinx may have died in the resulting explosion. Echo is quite clearly emotionally shattered given what just happened. Heimerdinger's first words to Echo are to ask him if he is alright, at which point Echo recognizes him.
Are you Counselor Heimerdinger?
And given Heimerdinger's reputation, and given Echo's apparent interest and skill in tinkering with technology, Echo is more than likely somewhat starstruck at randomly meeting the Dean of the Academy of Science, hence him not questioning Heimerdinger further at this point. I do think that Season 2 absolutely needs to address Echo and Heimerdinger's conflict, but I can understand why Echo did not start arguing with Heimerdinger in this particular scene. This scene also marks a rather dramatic shift in Echo's characterization following the fight on the bridge. He goes from an aggressive, paranoid, and highly strung vigilante to a somewhat bubbly, laid-back, and calm individual.
You look good for a dead girl. What do you know about this? Your people hunt us. Like animals. Say that one more time. Are you Counselor Heimerdinger? We're having the exact same day. You'd be surprised what you can pull off when your life depends on it. It's not enough to give people what they need to survive. You have to give them what they need to live.
His tone of voice is drastically less antagonistic, and this is presumably because he believes that he has just killed his childhood friend and avenged the various Firelights she murdered. Echo's final couple of scenes involve him introducing Heimerdinger to the Firelights' hideout, and we then see them tinkering with a clock during the final montage of Episode 9. Echo is a very solid character in Arcane, and in most other shows he would be among the best. He is well fleshed out, in particular given his limited screen time of 28 minutes. However, in a show with characters as good as the ones in Arcane, he inevitably slides towards the bottom of the pack. In Act 1, he primarily serves as a repeated plot device. In Act 2, he is a masked vigilante who follows the other characters, and 90% of his characterization takes place solely in Episode 7. There is nothing particularly wrong with his characterization, but outside of his fight with Jinx on the bridge, which is one of the best scenes in the show, nothing about Echo particularly stands out either. Moving on to Caitlyn. Caitlyn was the primary source of narrative thrust in Act 2, whereas in Act 3 she certainly takes more of a back seat and primarily serves as a pawn to be fought over. As we open Act 3, Caitlyn is pretty certain that she has been abducted by Silco. She, at this point, believes that Vi fundamentally cannot be trusted because she did not at any point tell Caitlyn that Jinx is her sister, and so Caitlyn assumes that the people that have abducted them are working for Silco. This doesn't make much sense because this would mean that Silco sent his own men to attack Jinx, but given the sheer chaos that unfolded in Episode 6, Caitlyn absolutely will not have the same information we as the audience have. She figures that her captors, whom she assumes to be working for Silco, are primarily or solely interested in Caitlyn herself. This is false, but again, absolutely makes sense given what Caitlyn knows. She is an enforcer who has been poking around in Silco's affairs with the goal of bringing him down. She is also trying to recover the gemstone that she knows to have been taken by Jinx. As far as Caitlyn is concerned, Silco should only view Vi as a tool that was used to get her close enough to do this. And this is entirely because Caitlyn does not understand the relationship that Vi has with Jinx, which is yet another example of a totally reasonable character-driven misunderstanding in Arcane. Rather confusingly, however, Caitlyn seems to think that the Enforcers mistakenly believe that the Firelights work for Silco.
If your people had your way, it'd be rubble and ash.
It's a misunderstanding. They think you work for Silco.
This doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but the more important question is, does it make any sense that Caitlyn could believe this to be true? Because Echo says, your people, he could be referring specifically to the Enforcers or to Topsiders in general, and I think that this makes far more sense if he is referring to the Council. We as the audience know that the Council knows that Silco exists, but they do not believe him to be a criminal. We also know that Marcus, on Silco's instruction, lied to the Council by claiming that Jinx's bomb was a Firelight bomb. The whole purpose of this action was to divert attention away from Silco and onto the Firelights, which wouldn't make any sense if the Council believed that the Firelights and Silco were on the same team. So if we instead look at what Caitlin actually knows, she knows that Silco is a criminal, and she is trying to prove it. She has seen plenty of evidence of this with her own eyes to confirm this suspicion. She also has no knowledge of the fact that Silco is trying to pin Jinx's crimes on the Firelights. Her statement that Piltover thinks that the Firelights work for Silco can only make sense if she has conflated working with Silco with working for the bad guys, which I'm not sure I would call a weak line of dialogue, but it is certainly a bit of a weird one. Caitlin goes on to challenge Echo when he suggests that the Enforcers are a corrupt institution. Caitlin highly values law, order, and integrity. She admired Grayson, and she at the very least respects Marcus. And as I theorized in part 2, it is not unlikely that Grayson's death directly led to her becoming an enforcer herself. Caitlin is defined by her desire to fight crime and protect the innocent, and it is therefore inconceivable to her that the Enforcers are being manipulated by Silco. Caitlin is highly motivated to recover the gemstone, and despite this not appearing to be her original objective, she reveals that she did know pretty much everything that we, the audience, knew. Initially, her objective seemed to be to acquire evidence to prove that Silco was responsible for the attacks at the Hex Gates and in the Square, but evidently recovering the gemstone was also one of her goals. Caitlin knows what it is, which makes sense because she is good friends with Jace, the man who created it. She also explains to Vi and Echo that it was stolen by Jinx in the attack, which makes sense because Caitlin saw Jinx at the crime scene, and her mother may well have told her about this off-screen after Jace informed the Council. Caitlin certainly appears to sympathize with Echo and acknowledges that he and the Firelights are being mistreated. I don't think that she is entirely convinced yet that Silco is the reason why the Enforcers are hunting the Firelights, but regardless, she understands why he feels the way he does. She explains to Echo that whilst she understands why he would want to keep the gemstone, if he does, the violence will not stop. Echo having the gemstone may mean that Jinx or some other scientifically minded individual with nefarious intentions towards Piltover will not be able to weaponize it against them. However, the Enforcers will not stop until they find it, and the Council would absolutely not accept the Firelights having the gemstone if they were to ever find out where it is. Caitlin appeals directly to what Echo wants, and she is able to convince him to help her, an Enforcer whom he would never usually trust. Skipping forwards to the bridge, Caitlin tells Marcus,
I have proof. Silco's behind everything.
Caitlin does not actually have any proof. She has Echo, a gang leader and a criminal, who plans to testify to the Council as to Silco's involvement. She also has the gemstone, which will put the Council's mind at ease and help them more readily accept Echo's account. Is this a step in the right direction? Absolutely. Is this the silver bullet that will bring down Silco? Absolutely not. However, Caitlin very likely believes that what Echo has to say will be enough to force the Council to take down Silco, and she, of course, believes Marcus to be on her side. After the end of Episode 7, Caitlin takes a back seat to the other primary characters. This is not necessarily a problem, however, because this is the end of her story, or at least it is the end of this chapter of her story. She went into the Undercity to find proof of Silco's involvement in the attacks in Piltover, and she has returned to the Council having seen this with her own eyes and with Vi's testimony. Her relationship with Vi also primarily manifests in Act 3. Her parents had sheltered her from seeing the world, and she recently experienced a totally different culture in a very short amount of time. She managed to prove to Vi that not all Enforcers are assholes, and Vi proved to Caitlin that not every criminal is a deranged scumbag. The writers do not simply leave this relationship as a platonic one, however, and they make it pretty explicit that the two are romantically interested in each other. However, Vi cuts things off before anything actually happens. So, given that nothing actually happens between Vi and Caitlin, what exactly is the purpose of having them be romantically interested in each other? Primarily, the purpose this serves is that it allows their displays of affection to be misinterpreted by Jinx, which then plays directly into the season finale. Jinx's paranoia leads her to believe that Vi has replaced her with Caitlin, and if Vi and Caitlin were very obviously just friends, then this would require a bit more in the way of mental gymnastics from Jinx to justify this belief. However, these handful of tiny moments between Vi and Caitlyn cause Jinx to think that Vi has found someone else to love and take care of, rather than that Vi has just found a new friend. Part of why this is so effective is because Jinx is not making this up out of nowhere. There is a hint of truth to it. You could perhaps describe Vi and Caitlyn's short-lived romance as manipulative, as the purpose it serves is to make Jinx freak out and misunderstand what is actually happening, which, of course, doesn't have anything to do with the actual bond between Vi and Caitlyn. I would very much like to see their relationship explored further in Season 2, because in Season 1, the function of the romance is primarily to service Jinx's character, not Vi or Caitlyn's. In the final moments of Season 1, Caitlyn watches helplessly as Jinx's missile heads towards the council chamber, knowing that her mother is about to die. Caitlyn in Act 2 was a fantastic example of how effectively one single character can drive large portions of the narrative through their actions. By the time we reach Act 3, however, Caitlyn has largely served her purpose. I won't say that I'm disappointed by her lack of impact in Act 3, because some characters becoming more and less important as a story progresses is an inevitable part of storytelling. But I will say that of the 5 characters in Season 1 with over an hour of total screen time, Caitlyn is the weakest. I am, however, very much looking forward to seeing what the writers do with this character going forward. Moving on to Vi, who spends most of Act 3 sharing her scenes with Caitlyn. The first thing that happens in Act 3 is that Vi reacts very emotionally to Caitlyn's accusations.
My love.
You're planning to tell me that
Hi.
the system works for him.
Just as soon as you came clean about what the hell you're really doing down here.
I told you the truth.
Bullshit.
She now knows about the existence of the Hextech gemstone and that Caitlyn wants it, and she correctly assumes that Caitlyn is not willing to reveal what she knows. Vi wants to know what the gemstone is because she wants to understand what Jinx was doing with it, and she doesn't like at all that Caitlyn has declined to explain this to her, seeing this as Caitlyn getting in her way. Vi also immediately antagonizes her captor before he reveals his identity.
You shy or just ugly?
All of this is entirely coherent
How are you?
for Vi. As Echo
Fabulous,
observes, she still has a
as
tendency to block with her face. This concept can be taken literally. When fighting, she chooses flat-out aggression, punching her opponents harder than they punch her, with defending herself being a secondary concern. This can also be taken metaphorically. Vi is overconfident, doesn't think things through, and her actions often lead to her friends getting hurt. Whilst this may well have been very accurate when Vi was a child, this is not entirely accurate anymore, as Vi has learned a thing or two since she last spoke to Echo. Given that the circumstances under which Vi was captured were not circumstances under which Vi was behaving recklessly, she was sucker punched because she was in shock at Powder's enjoyment in being violent, Vi did let her guard down, but this was not an instance of her blocking with her face. Vi then lockpicks her handcuffs without Echo noticing, which is a bit tropey, and I'm not entirely sure if I buy this. The reason the writers did this is so as to have Vi surprise Echo and hug him, which leads to an emotional moment between the two of them, but it requires that Echo didn't see what Vi was doing whilst looking right at her, and it requires that Vi is dexterous enough to be able to do this in the first place. The Vi way of dealing with being handcuffed to a pole would be to rip the thing off with sheer brute force, not fiddle around with a teeny tiny lockpick and carefully maneuver it until the handcuffs come loose.
You sent me some messages. Can you join me for a call later today? Just got to bed, body's collapsed, my feet and legs are killing me. Well, I'm glad you got done with the day. You have a chance to rest. I would suggest focusing on the rest part, which is, what I'm doing. Notice I'm being pretty lazy right now. Oh my god, it was Pam the whole time. No. Mooney messaged me on Discord. Alright. I'm banning
I have a
Pem.
feeling I should drop the bit.
I have to ban Pem from my chat. That's the only way to be sure. Please do. Please stop. God. Fast as fuck, boy. Yeah.
Maybe I am only seeing that to drop or guard, maybe I am not. Well, never know.
I will know eventually. It's not like you can hide that forever.
Oh hey, I was also doing apotheosis stuff.
And how's that going for you? What can I reroll into? I'm not doing that, but it's worth looking at. What can that reroll into? Don't care about any of those.
Have you checked to see if the world bosses work in the zombie pack?
The word bosses? No? I don't think. Ooh, plus 2.5 block reach. I'll give you with that later. The important thing with the world bosses is they don't spawn naturally. Nothing spawns naturally outside of the passive mobs in the overworld, zombies, and drowned. If you go and you try to fight a deer in the twilight, they'll never show up. So, like, yeah, try finding the bosses. It just doesn't work. Okay, well, this apparently had swim speed as an option. Can I swap out the toughness for that? Ooh, or that. There's no alternatives. Fall damage? No alternatives.
The bosses that spawn naturally. With weird names.
Damn.
And are announced.
Oh, yeah, only zombies can spawn. But they do spawn, yes. Wait, what? I mean, that's fine. I'll keep that. You're maxed out on speed. Yeah, I think that's all just chilling until I get better stuff. I can get an extra 65% speed right now, but I think it's better spent elsewhere. I do want a Brawler's Gem. Want the ballast on a heavy weapon. That requires me actually having a heavy weapon. Does this count as a heavy weapon? No, it's a mining tool. Damn. I guess I want a light weapon for the lifesteal. Now that I think about it. What about the reforging table? 3 smooth stone. I don't think I have any, but I have regular stone. Enchanting table. Iron. Need a book. Nether brick. I don't think I've brought back any, have I? No, let's go get that. Really? Oh, can this insta-mine? To you. And another right ingot. Sigils of Rebirth and Rarity materials. Oh, I can just skip all the way to the top. This one's literally just an upgrade from the one that left. Every single one is just a stronger version. At least this one you have 3% more mining speed in exchange for half the luck. And half the block reach, but like, yeah, obviously take that one. Level requirement 100. Oh my god, it eats 100 levels? Oh, I need to have 100 levels. Okay. I mean, that's still an upgrade. What if I did epic? Level 60. What about uncommon? Rare. You know, I'll just take this. This is fine. So that means I should go mining, because I can turn ores into XP pretty much instantly. Should get a magnet upgrade on you. Where the hell am I putting Hearts of the Sea? Have I used it for something? I don't think I did. Pufferfish and prismarine blocks. Bulk haunting lapis. I should go mining for more lapis before I do that. Okay, looks like everything's saying I should go mining. So yeah, let's get that backpack upgrade. I have the dye in here. No, it's upstairs. It's upstairs. Smart shoot means I need quartz and some redstone. And brass is up there. One of those is up there. So just iron. Oh, I lost my bedroll.
Had this been set up earlier as being something Vi might be able to do or have reason to learn how to do, then it may have been more believable. However, on the flip side of this, in surprising Echo by revealing that not only is she alive, not only is she not working for Silco, and not only is she still fundamentally the same person that he remembers, she has also evidently learned how to pick a lock. In other words, immediately after Echo accuses her of blocking with her face, thereby implying that Vi is still a reckless person who doesn't think about the consequences of her actions, Vi then demonstrates that she is not that person anymore. Vi is later shown to be very impressed by Caitlin's investigative work prior to her going to the Undercity, and the writers use this moment to allow Vi to draw a direct link between Caitlin and Powder.
I thought Powder could get obsessed.
This helps to justify Jinx's paranoia to some degree, as we, the audience, can see that Vi is noticing subtle similarities between the two of them. However, her trust and faith in Caitlyn's dedication ends up being futile, as the meeting with the council does not go as planned, leading Vi to believe that Caitlyn cannot fix this. Vi accepts that life will continue in the way that it always has, and that if she wants to deal with Silco, she has to do this alone. As she says goodbye to Caitlyn, she explains that like Piltover and the Undercity, she and Caitlyn are like oil and water. They are incompatible. This is partly because Vi is about to go and do something very dangerous, with her survival not being guaranteed, and partly because they disagree on how to deal with Silco.
We have to go in by force.
There are good people down there.
You want to negotiate with him? This is insane. Did you learn nothing?
Caitlyn exemplifies law, order, and justice, and Vi believes that this approach has just failed them in the council meeting. Vi's continuous pursuit of her sister is entirely informed by the climax of Act 2, where she was almost able to reach her before they were interrupted by the firelights. When Vi chooses to take Caitlyn to Piltover and leave Echo to fend off Jinx, Vi knows something bad will very likely happen as a result of this. She had previously discussed the nature of Jinx with Echo, and although she flatly refused to accept that Powder was gone, Echo has seen who Powder has become. Even by the end of Season 1, Vi does not ever learn for certain what the outcome of the fight actually was, and until the end of Episode 9, she will have been under the belief that either Echo or Jinx or both of them were dead. When it is revealed that Jinx is not dead, this should have strongly suggested to Vi that Jinx killed Echo. And whilst I don't think it would have been appropriate for her to have asked what Jinx did to Echo during the final scene of Episode 9, I am very much expecting that going forward, Vi will believe that Echo is dead until she sees evidence to the contrary. Shortly after arriving in Piltover, Vi explains to Caitlyn that when she was a child, she and Powder used to share a bed. They would play a game where they pretended to be bigger and bigger monsters, Powder would get scared, and Vi would then chase her made-up monsters away to protect her sister. Then, as she says, a real monster showed up, and not only was Vi unable to protect her sister, but she ran away. 2 words: extreme guilt. This is how you do this. Vi punishes herself for what happened to her sister, even though, as I went through in Act 1, Vi's reaction to Vander's death was entirely reasonable from her perspective. That does not matter in the slightest to Vi anymore. This is entirely her fault, and so it is up to her to make it right. Again, because the writers of Arcane are extremely good at what they do not just use this monologue to tell us about how guilty Vi feels, but they also show us how much she trusts Caitlyn, as Caitlyn is the only person that Vi will show any vulnerability to. When Vi and Caitlyn speak to the council, Vi identifies Jinx as the creator of the bomb given to Jace by Marcus earlier in the season. This is going to take some dissecting. On face value, it appears that Vi has just acted against her own interests. She has put her sister in danger by naming her as an associate of Silco's and by identifying her as being behind the various attacks on the Enforcers. She has also just given this information to the Council of Piltover, who have repeatedly been shown to be incompetent. The reason why the writers need this to happen is so that Jace can demand that Silco turns Jinx over to him, which of course requires that Jace knows who Jinx is, which then directly leads into the climax of the series and the conclusion of Silco's character arc. The Council, therefore, needs to learn that Jinx is responsible for all of this carnage. This is going to take quite a bit of justifying, but the writers do actually give us an explanation for why Vi would do this. Firstly, Caitlyn and Cassandra have proven to be willing to at least hear Vi out. Jace also stressed moments earlier that they needed to do something to prevent further loss of life, which indicates to Vi that the Council very clearly needs her help, and they appear to be willing to actually listen to her. Additionally, in keeping with Vi's lesson to Caitlyn in Act 2, Vi is trying to use the Council to get what she wants, and so she is convincing them that she has what they want: Jinx. Vi's objective here is to bring down Silco, and she believes that if Silco is dealt with, she will get her sister back. Importantly, Vi at this point does not consider Jinx and Powder to be the same person. She is fundamentally unwilling to accept this reality. This scene is in fact the first time that Vi names her sister as Jinx.
Her name is Jinx.
She does refer to her as Jinx earlier in episode 6.
What was the name Svika gave you? Jinx.
Right. Jinx. How could I forget?
But in this instance, Vi is simply repeating what Caitlin has just said. Conversely, Vi conclusively names Jinx as the person who made the bomb, and as the person behind the recent attacks. Vi evidently does not consider naming Jinx to be any kind of betrayal, whereas had she named her as Powder and explained what happened in their past, then this would absolutely have been a direct betrayal. Additionally, it is important to remember that Vi may well believe that Jinx is dead at this point. Either Echo killed her or she died in the explosion, which means naming her to the Council will not be putting her in further danger. The outcome Vi wants from all of this is for Silco to be dealt with, which she believes will then allow her to reach Powder and get rid of Jinx forever. But of course, if Jinx died on the bridge, then her goal instead will be revenge against the people who she believes took her sister away from her. Either way, playing ball with the Council is a necessity in her achieving her goals. And finally, Vi did not exactly go out of her way to volunteer this information. Jace directly asked Caitlin who made the bomb, and so the only other option Vi would have been to lie and say, "I have no idea," which would not have helped in the slightest. Turning over this information does not end up giving her the results that she wanted. Vi is in disbelief that the Council wants to negotiate with Silco because she wants Silco destroyed and she knows Silco in a way that the others do not. This also, of course, means that she disagrees with Caitlin, as Caitlin objected to Jace's suggestion that they go in by force. Shortly after the Council meeting, Vi seeks out Jace so as to convince him to help her make Silco pay for his actions. She wants revenge, and Jace will help her achieve it. As Jace has at this point had a little chat with Ambessa, their goals align. One other small detail, we are given a reason why Vi would trust Jace, when one might expect that Vi would want absolutely nothing to do with him.
You're the first person Caitlin looked for when we made it to Topside. You said you were tired of doing nothing. That's the only sensible thing that came out of anyone's mouth tonight.
This is interesting because it shows that Vi still respects and relies upon Caitlin's judgment, even though Vi and Caitlin are directly opposed in how to deal with Silco and the Undercity. After they destroy one of Silco's facilities and Jace accidentally kills a child, Vi chastises Jace for not being able to deal with looking at one dead kid. This is normal for her, and whilst tragic, it is the status quo for the Undercity. The ignorance of the Council allows this to continue, and Vi wants them to keep hitting Silco until he is gone. She goes on to suggest that the kid knew what he was signing up for, and that Jace did not have a choice. She knows that this kid almost certainly did not know what he was signing up for. She knows Silco, and she knows how he operates, and so the suggestion that this kid died as a result of his own actions is surprisingly callous from Vi. She would, of course, not apply the same reasoning to her own sister. However, Vi does not believe what she is saying, and she
Okay, so I almost just lost my diamond pack filled with shit. I have been searching for it for the past however since my last message, and I just checked my footage and saw I fucking put it in a chest.
What is the first thing that she does? Head to the last drop to deal with Savika.
That's why I try not to have it as an item.
Vi,
as long as it's in your inventory, you can very easily mess it
reason
up.
why she wants to take out Savika is because Savika betrayed Vander. The extra benefit of this is that it will also disrupt Silco's operation, but there are more effective ways of hurting Silco than fighting with Savika in a bar. During the fight, Vi also drinks alcohol in between throwing punches, and the accompanying music definitely indicates that Vi is enjoying getting her revenge. This sequence is absolutely cathartic, and it is extremely effective. After Vi starts to lose, however, the tone shifts, the music stops, and Vi hallucinates Vander giving her advice. This is informed not only by the fact that they used to have these kinds of discussions when she was younger, but also that Vander is the reason why she is currently fighting Savika. Her recalling Vander's advice, whereupon he tells her that her sister still needs her, gives Vi a second wind. The tone has transitioned in the space of about 30 seconds from upbeat and purely cathartic to emotional and dramatic. And the reason why this does not feel out of place or jarring is because the writing, the animation, and the music all work together to pull this off. And there is no better word for this than beautiful. I'm going to save most of what I have to say regarding the climax of episode 9 for when I discuss Jinx and Silco, so for now I will conclude with my thoughts on Vi. She is an extremely compelling protagonist. She has the most screen time of any character in the show at just over 2 hours, And in this time, the writers use her to drive one half of an incredibly effective and emotionally engaging story of the broken bond between two sisters. Much of Vi's story involves her struggle to deal with the consequences of mistakes that she made as a child, and what these mistakes mean for both her sister and the state of the Undercity and Piltover as a whole. She is absolutely one of the best characters in Arcane, and she is a large part of why the show is held in such high regard. Bring on Season 2. The first thing we
You
get
are going
from
to regret
Jinx
that
in
statement.
Act 3 is when Jace explains his efforts to dismantle Jinx's bomb that Marcus gave him.
I tried taking it apart and it nearly killed me. Whoever built it knows exactly what they're doing.
This shows us that her bombs have taken on a new meaning. They're not conventional.
I am a go CYA.
His life building things was unable to dismantle it safely. And so Jinx's bombs are now symbolic of her pure chaotic nature, which foreshadows Jace's own inability to deal with Jinx safely. After the climax of Act 2, we see Jinx stapling her leg wound shut. She claims to herself not to remember Caitlyn's name, only to then recall it whilst she staples her leg.
Caitlyn.
This indicates a couple of things that are very small but very important. Firstly, inflicting pain on herself allows Jinx to recall Caitlyn's name, perhaps because it puts her in a similar state of mind to when she first heard the name. Secondly, Jinx associates immense pain with Caitlyn's name. And thirdly, after recalling Caitlyn's name, Jinx punches another staple into her leg and doesn't appear to acknowledge the physical pain that she was feeling moments earlier. This could be interpreted not as her overcoming her fear of pain, but overcoming pain itself. She appears to be more capable and more effective when she is suffering, and so she decides to embrace it. We saw this previously in the arcade, where she deliberately recalled how much she hated Vi before letting rip on the boxing machine. Jinx seems to be more capable when she is very distressed. Keep this in mind for later, as it will become very important. The first thing that Jinx does after sorting out her leg is confront Silco, which is exactly what she would do, because at this point she believes that he has lied to her about Vi. She believes that Silco had Marcus imprison Vi so as to keep the two of them apart, and that therefore her entire relationship with Silco as her adoptive father has been built on his deception and manipulation. Jinx has no idea what to believe anymore, and Silco is no longer the bedrock of her emotional stability. The fact that Vi is alive means that Silco is either a liar or incompetent, and this is a large part of what causes her further descent into madness during Act 3. After Silco defends himself by truthfully stating that Marcus lied to him, Jinx correctly states that Silco is a liar regardless, as he did find out that Vi was back, and yet he still decided to hide this information from Jinx. But Silco's explanation that he was trying to protect Jinx from further emotional pain does appear to be sufficient, at least for now. Jinx disappears after Silco tells her that he needs her to finish the weapon, likely because she knows that she no longer has the gemstone, and she does not want Silco to learn of this. She does not want to disappoint him, and she does not want him to see her as weak, which is an excellent continuation of her motivation and characterization from Act 2. What Jinx does next, however, is slightly problematic, or at least it appears to be, until we dig a little deeper. Jinx waits on the bridge for Vi and Caitlyn. At this point, Jinx can only assume that the Firelights have the gemstone. Therefore, one might expect that Jinx would be attempting to locate the Firelights' hideout. We, the audience, know that Caitlyn intends to return with Echo to Piltover so as to present the gemstone to the Council, and that therefore they will have to cross the bridge and will likely get caught in Marcus's blockade. Jinx, however, does not know this. Jinx cannot know this. Jinx doesn't know who the Firelights are, she doesn't know that Echo would potentially be sympathetic to Vi and Caitlyn's cause, and she can't possibly have predicted that after capturing Vi and Caitlyn, the Firelights would then release them and let them waltz back into Piltover. This explanation for Jinx's actions is that she decided to stake out the bridge, figuring that maybe someone at some point might try to take the gemstone to Piltover. This is not broken, but it is weak, because as far as Jinx could possibly be aware, the Firelights have the gemstone, and regardless of whether they killed, imprisoned, or released Vi and Caitlyn, this would not change that fact. There is, however, an alternative read of Jinx's motivation that helps to explain this. In the scene in which she staples her legs shut, Jinx repeats the name Caitlin and then makes a gun gesture with her hand. This strongly suggests that her intention at this point is to kill Caitlin so that she can have Vi all to herself, and Silco's instruction to finish weaponizing the gemstone is secondary. If this is the case, then Jinx is not waiting on the bridge to grab the gemstone. She is waiting on the bridge because Caitlin is an enforcer, and therefore she will presumably return at some point to Piltover. This explanation isn't airtight, however, because, again, as far as Jinx is aware, Vi and Caitlin have been abducted by the Firelights. And so either way, waiting for Caitlin or Vi or the gemstone to appear on the bridge seems like a questionable strategy, regardless of what Jinx's actual goal is. However, if we are willing to accept that Jinx trying to locate the Firelight's hideout is not an option, more on that later, then this would likely be her best move. Upon seeing Vi embracing Caitlin, Jinx becomes emotionally triggered once again. This is another example of a misunderstanding that allows the plot to happen, and because it was thoroughly set up, this does not rely on random chance. This isn't a case of, oh no, Jinx just so happened to be in exactly the wrong place at exactly the wrong time and saw the worst thing she could have possibly seen. Jinx is on the bridge either to recover the gemstone or to dispose of Caitlin, and Vi embraces Caitlin because she is saying goodbye, intending at this point to stay behind and reconnect with Jinx. As has happened multiple times in Arcane, Jinx misunderstands what is actually happening, but the writers have made sure that, based on the information Jinx has at this point in time, her perspective is entirely understandable.
It's just a goodbye, Hope.
She wouldn't do that. Not again.
This further indicates that some part of her does believe that Vi is still her sister. She doesn't say to herself, oh snap, that bitch betrayed me again. She instead tries to justify to herself why Vi might hug Caitlin. Regardless, she concludes that Vi is in fact a liar when Vi runs to rescue Caitlin from Marcus. This is a bit odd, and we unfortunately have to lean a little harder on the, well, she's just crazy factor than I would have liked. Jinx can clearly see what is going on with Marcus, Echo, and Caitlin. She saw Marcus shoot Echo, and she can see that he is about to shoot Caitlin. Vi responding to the gunshot as she does only proves that Vi does not want Caitlin to die, which Jinx mistakenly extrapolates to Vi is a liar and has replaced me with Caitlin. Could she believe this, given how paranoid she is? Yes. Could the logistics of this scene have been slightly tweaked so as to make it more reasonable that Jinx would have this perspective? Also yes. Jinx then releases the explodey bugs to kill the enforcers, to ideally kill Caitlin, and to allow her to recover the gemstone. Rather interestingly, had Jinx done nothing, Marcus would have presumably mustered up the determination to kill Caitlin himself, and he would have recovered the gemstone and returned it to Silco. This may sound like something Jinx would want, but Jinx would consider this outcome catastrophic, because she is terrified of being seen as weak, and she is still very much controlled by her fear of pain. If Marcus returns the gemstone to Silco, it will make Jinx look weak and incapable. Another factor is that Marcus could potentially change his mind and present the gemstone to the Council himself, thus betraying Silco. Alternatively, Jinx didn't even consider Marcus's presence and was simply trying to get the gemstone because she needs it. As she walks onto the bridge, Jinx executes an enforcer and successfully retrieves the gemstone.
Do we ever actually learn
fire on
if
Vi and Caitlin
Jinx
in a
knows
fit of rage.
Marcus is a traitor?
Throughout this sequence, we do have hints that powder still exists in some form. Firstly, when Jinx hums the same song that she sang in the opening of episode 1, which took place on the same bridge. And secondly, when she accepts Echo's invitation to play their childhood game once more. After being defeated by Echo, Jinx decides to take them both out, and she detonates one of her bombs. Her psyche has been pushed to the brink due to the repeated misinterpretations of Vi's behavior, her extreme paranoia regarding Caitlin, and the inconvenient timing of the Firelights cutting their previous conversation short. She has also just come face to face with her childhood friend, who, as it turns out, is the leader of the Firelights. It certainly does appear that everybody wants to be her enemy. Echo reminds her of the game they used to play, thereby reminding her of who she used to be, and she is then defeated, thereby revealing Jinx's weakness: powder. This, combined with her belief that Vi has replaced her with Caitlin, all proves to be too much, and so Jinx decides to kill herself, albeit unsuccessfully, which I will get to later. Jinx later abducts Silco, Vi, and Caitlin and takes them to the cannery where Jinx was born. She tells Vi that although Silco believes he is responsible for creating Jinx by raising her and teaching her to overcome her weaknesses, it was in fact Vi who created Jinx in a brief moment of frustration. Since that day, Jinx has been tormented by the thought of her sister, seeing and hearing her around every street corner. However, Jinx also says that hearing Vi's voice helped her.
You never left. I always heard you. Shadows in the streets.
My love.
Nails on the back of my neck. Your voice.
Ready! For real this time.
Hold on. Did Pemister trick you again?
You're the reason I'm still alive.
This is a
he
fascinating
got
addition
me.
to what was already great storytelling. Jinx tells Vi that whilst Vi is the reason why she fell in with Silco, Vi abandoning her also allowed Jinx to excel in a way that she never would have had Vi stayed with her. Had Vi not abandoned her, Jinx would also not have had the opportunity to learn anything from Silco, and although Silco's attempts to help Jinx were not what she needed, his lessons did absolutely affect her behavior. Vi also repeatedly encouraged Powder when they were children, one example being in episode 1 when she reassures Powder that her bombs will work one day. Had Vi not believed in Powder, she would have never been able to create the insane bits of tech that she went on to create.
Oh, you poor soul.
Point being, Vi's actions led to the creation of Jinx, and Jinx and Powder are of course the same person, something Vi has until this point been unwilling to accept.
Who?
This is also why Jinx kept fragments of her past, including the Valdiani from episode 1, Vander's pipe, and Vi's rabbit. She wants to remind herself of how far she has come, and how each of them played a part in making her who she is. Jinx then asks Vi,
Are we still sisters?
her life has been upended, and she is testing Vi to see if she can be truthful. At this point, Jinx has no idea what is going to happen, and she is working things out in real time. The responses Vi gives will dictate what she does next, which is why this entire
I was thinking
elaborate
about going
setup
to
is
bed.
focused specifically on Vi. Jinx believes at this
I mean, you can. I can't. I have to go get dinner in a few minutes and then volunteer at the Red Cross.
3 days of work doesn't sound a lot, but my body is so tired.
I mean, it depends on the work. There's some jobs where even just one day can wipe you. Ow. My hands, man. Alright. I'll start heading up and out here.
Stop smacking into walls.
But it's so fun. Besides, I need to get practice on Cradiotomies. That's the removal of skull bone tissue. I can get up there, I swear. Wasn't there a cave around here? Whatever.
Zoomies.
Zoom. I'm fast as fuck, boy. This isn't even my final form. Okay, I want to just stop and take a second.
I hope this
to
isn't
admire
the
this.
mod pack for the season.
It's not. Not even. No. This is a custom mod pack I made just because I knew I'd have fun with it. The mod pack for the season, you can tell that this isn't it because I had to kill a skeleton earlier. There are no other hostile mobs. It's just zombies in the zombie pack. It's also way harder to get completely broken nonsense gear.
The sugar cane.
Yeah, this is... I don't even know what mod is doing this. But, like... I'm just gonna let it keep going until it stops. It'll get taller than the tree at least, but like... Will it just keep going? I don't know. Of course, I have the cork logs you can crawl into.
Sugar cane go BRRR.
I have one as my nether portal entrance over here, so that those guys don't get any funny ideas. I got so much valuable crap out of that. Being able to make echo shards is actually pretty nice. Skulltrine lava.
I want to get into some funny ideas. You walked into that one.
Walked into... Huh? I must be missing something. Okay, let's get mob drops. Oh, I can go kill another
Your dirty mind has failed you.
another wither. My dirty mind. What did my dirty mind fail me in? What did I miss? What the fuck do you mean I can walk that? No, let me in the stupid... Thank you. Nah, they're only blue.
Clearly, my flirt also failed.
Apparently. But at least part of that's just the fact that I'm not paying too much attention. Here we go. Woo.
Ouch, my love.
Ouch. These guys can barely hurt me. Even if I let them wail on me, I still would come out fine. Like, look at my armor stat. I have 60 armor. I am not worried about taking damage.
Not paying attention? You wound my pride.
I'm sorry. Just a lot for me to pay attention to, you know? But unfortunately I have to go anyway, so I will pay attention to our messages in Discord, and that will be a little more, you know, personal. But yeah, I'm sorry, I do have to go. There's food, and then there's a visit to the Red Cross for a few hours, so...